Buddy, and welcome in to the Dorton and Duckett Debate Podcast. I am Lucas Dorton. That is not Nick Duckett, but this is I don't know how many time returner to the show now. He has been here many a times, usually always around this exact same time of the year when the NFL draft rolls around. Ladies and gentlemen, Josh Milling. Josh, how are you doing today?
Man, this is like Christmas for us football fans. College football, NFL, this is where our loves merge, man. Right here at the draft. This is the best time of year, man.
It is, man. Like I constantly every single day, well, I guess always around this time of the year, the NFL draft is my favorite non like live sport. It's like sporting event that happened. I mean, it's live, obviously people getting drafted, but like athletes actually doing athletic stuff. This is my favorite non thing of that easily.
No, same man. It's 3 days, they pace it out really good. It gets to the second and third days, like I love watching it all, but like I love how the last days, started a little earlier, but like man, they buzzed through those picks, but then like it's just perfect. And I know like there's kind of the whole like teams already know the picks and like the TV is behind because they have to do the ads and everything, get all the money. But
Yeah.
like I like stringing out the drama, man, because you never know. Maybe like a team submitted something, but there's some paperwork problems. And you never know, man. It's a fun
That's right.
time.
Didn't get the phone call in before the pick. That happens. That happens. Anyways, though, no, this is an absolutely electric time of the year. And people like Josh and myself like to do mock drafts, like to see how close we get to every single pick. I don't know if I've ever gotten more than like four right in the single draft because someone gets picked earlier than you think and it throws off the entire draft. What's the best you've ever done, you think?
I mean, I don't know like pick numbers per se, but I personally like my favorite one is I don't remember the year, but I think it was the only time when I did it with you, we were trying to keep score of mock drafts. And I think
Yeah.
we just forgot to. But I had a guy going to the Ravens, Jalen Ferguson, I believe, a defensive lineman in the first round. He went to the Ravens in like the third round. I was like, hey, that pick counts, man. That's for my point. So like that's what I was like. This guy is purely a Raven, and I thought he was so good that the Ravens would pick him first round, but hey, he fell to the third round, and I like actually don't know where he is anymore. I don't know if he's still in the league, but hey, he was drafted, and I called it, so that's my
Yeah.
one claim to fame.
Your one claim to fame, ladies and gentlemen, Josh O'Malley. Let me see. Actually, that's a good question. Oh, uh, that is right. Jalen Ferguson passed away last year.
That's right. Yeah, because I remember it was a cool story because when he was getting drafted, he actually didn't get the phone call because there was a tornado that had happened in his hometown. So he was
Mhm.
actually in his hometown helping out. He was like apparently this like he was that guy too. So he was like a really good guy. I remember that. Yeah. Yeah. Rest in peace,
Right.
man. Cool dude. Cool
Yeah. No,
dude.
right as I started searching the name, I'm like, I have definitely heard this name before.
Yeah.
So our apologies to Mr. Ferguson and the family. But anyways, we will move on to some brighter things here for sure. Um, So we're going to go into the draft. We're not going to give you a pick by pick who we think is going to go. That will be coming up later on, probably a couple weeks from now. I'll be doing another episode. Caleb Sipe, who has come on the episode before, we usually do the pick by pick there. So that is the plan for that. So stay tuned. But we're going to go um, position by position, and by not every defensive position, but as Josh mentioned in the pregame here before we started, pretty much all of the fantasy football positions plus defensive tackle is what we're going to be talking about today.
Yeah. And like I know the big names for like offensive linemen, edge rushers,
Yeah,
linebackers, defensive backs, all this stuff. But like strangely, just I've been really like just focused on the fantasy football guys. I guess because like offenses and like skill positions are a little bit easier to scout. And like I've been busy, and we'll mention that like at the end of the podcast when we get to plugs and stuff. But
yeah,
yeah, um, if you're a fantasy football player, pay attention to this one.
yes, absolutely. Yeah, so some pretty scouting before your fantasy football drafts in the fall here. So we're going to dive right into it. We are going to start at the quarterback position. So this is a very interesting situation here. Number 1 overall, Carolina Panthers. It was the Chicago Bears, but obviously they traded out of that pick, got DJ Moore out of it. So give Justin Fields another weapon there, or maybe another quarterback. We shall see. But anyways, Carolina Panthers, number 1 overall pick. This is a tough one. Bryce Young, CJ Stroud. It's going to be one of those 2 names called. It seems like every single day I see a new article. Panthers are leaning towards Young. Well, maybe not. Maybe they're leaning towards CJ Stroud. So if you had to take a guess, who do the Panthers go with? So I guess this is our only, okay, yeah, this is what we're doing for this pick. But who do you think the Panthers lean towards here?
The Panthers, just based on their entire team, like actually, like if you look at their entire roster, they're not like actually that bad of a team. And like even look at the team last year when they were playing, they were in some games. But
Yep.
I think based on that, they're gonna go with CJ Stroud because he feels like he's been the guy for the long time. And there's kind of like a little bit of inside football stuff here where like Josh McCown is the new quarterback coach there.
Yep.
And he was working with Underdog Fantasy and he was doing breakdowns and stuff. And of course he loved all the quarterbacks. So like he praised and negatives wherever he needed to. But like really talking about CJ Stroud, like he was really on CJ Stroud. Frank Reich really loves like taller quarterbacks.
Yep.
And
6'3".
if I'm yeah, exactly, and if I'm the Panthers, like I love Young, I love Richardson. We'll talk about the other quarterbacks and stuff. But I think Stroud is just like he's like the nice middle ground where he's not like the most elite athlete, but he can move. He doesn't have the biggest rocket arm, but he has a really good arm, and just like the poise he has, the and the accuracy he has. And I know he played with NFL receivers at Ohio State. And I know
Yep.
for most of the time, Ohio State was up. But man, his performance against Georgia, and I know that's just one game, but that's the closest you'll get to an NFL game. And I
Yep.
know it's 3 weeks to scout, and Ryan Day, the Ohio State head coach, offensive coach, when he has a long time to game plan, he draws up insane game plans. But that performance by Stroud just showed me everything because for the most part, Ohio State is up on teams and they're just destroying teams. Like sometimes people are like, oh man, Stroud he doesn't look super elite. It's like he doesn't have to look elite. They're up by 28. It's in the second quarter already. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they were barely ever tested. And like they lost to Michigan both times he started. But that's kind of more like Michigan just like kind of hasn't been building to beat Ohio State now. And that's kind of Ohio State's defense. Like Stroud's looked fine in those games. He hasn't looked like great, but he's looked fine. And like otherwise, I just think and there's like the whole like NFL ready ceiling floor, all this stuff. I think high floor, and he does have a higher ceiling than people talk about. So I think the biggest thing is with his high floor, where the Panthers are right now, especially in a weak NFC South. I think
Yeah.
they get him, go get him, and then
Yeah.
who knows? Because like even just the entire NFC, it's like the Eagles, the 49ers, and then who else? The Panthers
Mm,
could easily win the
yeah.
division. Who knows, man? You could do good. So I think Stroud's the guy.
I would have to agree with you on that. Now a big kind of knock, which is an unfair one, I think, that people are saying, "Oh, Ohio State Ohio State quarterbacks suck." They have. They have definitely not done well. But I I don't think you can't use that as a reason why this guy won't be good. Oh, the sixth, I don't know, other quarterbacks ahead of you came from Ohio State weren't very good in the NFL, but so that automatically means you aren't. Well, that's not true. Um, that's a big thing. People are always like, yeah, he had NFL receivers to throw to. Okay, is he supposed to apologize? I'm sorry. Oh, why don't you bench Marvin Harrison and Smith and Jigba and let me get the true freshman out there or eighth stringer that's never going to play so I can prove these NFL scouts that I'm him. But no, I agree. I agree very much. I think he could do good things with the Panthers. Obviously, they lost DJ Moore, but they brought in Adam Thielen, a great vet. You talk about a veteran to lead a young quarterback, a great veteran. Miles Sanders coming out of the backfield. They had some good weapons there. They had some good weapons. But
And the biggest thing too is their offensive line is decent. Like they got
Yep.
Ike Aquanum last year. Their right tackle, I forget his last name. I believe it's Taylor Moton or something.
Yeah,
He's
sounds
pretty
right.
good. They've got decent guards. I believe the center is kind of up in there, but I think he's like a league average center, and that's fine for a lot of
Yep.
these quarterbacks coming in.
Yeah.
That's perfectly fine. Like another Ohio State quarterback, Justin Fields. Look at his last 2 years in the NFL. My
Oh,
gosh, he's not throwing. He weapons aside, which are awful. Um,
terrible
like no offense to those guys, but his
offense.
offensive line is so bad. And I don't care who you are. And this is Justin Fields who shows that he's a crazy athlete. What are you gonna do when the ball is snapped and you have 0.02 seconds to do anything? So
Yeah.
this is a really good position for any of the quarterbacks. I'm assuming the Panthers take a quarterback. It'd be crazy if they trade up to when they didn't. But
Right.
assuming they take a quarterback, whichever quarterback they pick here, they're going to be in a good position.
Yeah, you bring up a good point too about the Justin Fields thing. There's a reason why probably about 90% of the highlights we saw from Justin Fields this last year were running highlights. It's because that is all he was doing every game. When Cole Kmet was his leading number one wide receiver, no shade to him, but that's not going to win you games. So I'm glad they got DJ Moore. But anyway, so we'll move on from Stroud here. Move on to then probably the number 2 overall pick in Bryce Young, the Alabama Crimson Tide guy here. Now, the first question is the height, coming in at 5'9, 5'10, depending on who you ask. Now, me personally, I don't have a huge problem with it. We have seen short quarterbacks come in and do very well. Obviously, the big two that people are always going to bring up, Russell Wilson and Drew Brees, as the short quarterbacks that have dominated. Had there been short quarterbacks that have come in and sucked? Yeah, but there's also been 6'5" quarterbacks that have come in and sucked too. Now, I will say though, because of his size, he's not a big guy, 204, 5'9", 5'10". Besides Laramie Tunzel, that offensive line in Houston is bad. It is not a good offensive line. So then you worry, okay, do we think he's going to get the crap beat out of him? Is it going to be a Lamar Jackson situation in Baltimore where he really didn't have, now granted, he was doing a lot of design running plays where he did kind of get hit a lot, but the offensive line was never fantastic when he was there. I think Houston Texans offensive line, if Laramie Tunzel was not there, it may be one of the worst ever. They're not good. So do you worry about him getting hit and getting hurt? So I guess that's my intro to you into the Bryce Young situation. Should the size be a concern, and what's your overall thoughts on him?
It's not just the height, it's the weight. And I know like combine, he was like 204 or whatever.
Yeah.
But that's a lie, man. I don't know what kind of food they gave. No, I don't care. His playing weight has to be 195 at the most.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You just look at his frame. He doesn't look like a guy like Russell Wilson is short, but he's stocky.
Yes.
Drew Brees was short, but he was like built. Even Kyler Murray, shorter
Yeah.
guy. Actually, his like height was like fairly taller than I thought it was, but I'm pretty sure had insoles or something. I don't know, but he's built too.
Yep.
These guys are built like the only guy like physically who people have compared Bryce Young to is like Doug Flutie.
Yeah.
Height and like just tiny. Now Doug Flutie did pretty good, and if you watch like there's like the NFL network like documentary on him, like he got screwed out of stuff just because they're like, oh, he's too short. But like that's the thing with Young, where he's tiny too, where you get beat up this much, that's gonna take a toll on you. That being said, my goodness, is this guy not one of the greatest escape artists I've ever
Oh,
seen in my
so
entire
good.
life?
So
And
good.
and it's not even just like it's not just a skill like pure like escaping, running, getting out like Lamar Jackson, Justin Fields. I don't remember. I didn't get to see prime Mike Vick, but I saw him with the Eagles like the 1 year like where he was really good. That's still pretty good.
Yeah.
Russell Wilson, he will escape. That's so good. But like the thing is with Young is he will escape, and my problem is with him, he will dance around too long because he can. he makes plays where he's just dancing around and he'll make ridiculous throws. It's like, okay, great. And there are other times it's like, man, just take the 5 yards and slide. Just take it. And I think that's gonna have to be it's pretty easy to coach. It's gonna have to be, hey man, I know you can do this, but these NFL guys are a lot faster, they're a lot bigger, and they're gonna hit you. So you gotta just get down, throw it away, all this stuff. But I think the good thing is like these last 2 years, this Alabama offensive line hasn't actually been that great. Especially this last season. And also this last season, he wasn't throwing to NFL dudes like
the dudes, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like physically, the guys were like they're of course they're gonna be like they're gonna look good, but like otherwise, it's like man, why is this guy running this weird route? Why is this guy running this weird route? Why are these wide receivers running into each other? That's just happening with Alabama, and somehow, someway, Bryce Young just pops out of a pile of bodies and throws a 20-yard dime, and it's just I think if anyone's gonna go to the Texans and like survive behind that line, it's him or another player we're gonna talk about in a little bit. But I might take Young just because he is just his feel for the game is crazy.
Yeah.
Because I think when he was, I don't remember, he was 13 or something. He like started training with like a basketball coach or something. So he's got like the basketball feel, and you see it. He's kind of like a point guard out there. So I think, long story short, yeah, he's going to take his lumps, but he's not going to take as many. And especially if he learns that, okay, sometimes I can't play for this pass. I just got to run. I got to throw it away. He should be, I think he's going to be great. I was on him the year when he was clearly going to start, like after Mac Jones left. I said, Bryce Young is my number 1 Heisman player, and he won the Heisman. I don't know, like that's not like saying too much because he's a 5-star quarterback at Alabama, but there weren't like a lot of. It wasn't like he wasn't one of the mainstream names to win the Heisman, and I had him, and then he came back this season again, and put up a very similar year with much lesser talent around him. So I think he'll be fine with the Texans, assuming he goes to the Texans.
Right. Yep. Assuming that happens. So yeah, I agree. I think you talk about instincts. He has very, very good instincts, and you're hitting the nail on the head. He can run around a lot, and he has had a lot of success running around. But I'm sure, yep, like you said, and a very coachable player too. I mean, when Nick Saban's your head coach for the amount of time that you're there, you have to be a coachable player, and he absolutely is. So I'll be interested to see how D'Amico Ryans handles that situation, assuming he does go to Houston there as well. So those are kind of I think the pretty consensus number 1, number 2 quarterbacks. Whichever one is 1, whichever one is 2 can change, but I think those are the 2 main ones there. Now this is where it kind of gets a little interesting. Who's 3? Who's 4? I'm going to talk about him because I'm a Florida guy, and I think he probably is the 3rd best one here. Anthony Richardson. Now, I will be honest. When I heard people say number 1 overall pick, I was like, I don't know. But then I'm thinking about it. I watched a lot of Florida Gators games this last year. He did not have people to throw the ball to. And then it's like, okay, well, the things that we saw were pretty dang impressive. I think raw talent wise, he may be the best talent in the draft. I think, and that's based on, and so like the ceiling, I think his ceiling is absolutely massively through the roof. I see a lot of Cam Newton comps with him. I think he's even a more talented Cam Newton personally. Now, maybe am I a little biased in saying that? Probably am, but I truly think he is. We saw the show that he put on at the combine, and then it just kept it going at his pro day as well too in Florida when he hit the top of the roof in the bubble that they had there. Now, a lot of people that probably don't watch him a lot look at the stats, and that's the first thing people are going to go to, and they're not sexy stats. 2,549 yards, 17 touchdowns, and 9 interceptions passing wise. But man, an absolute athlete. This dude can flip the field in a moment's notice. You could start on your own 5, and he can take you all the way down to the other team's 20. in a blink of an eye. So, me personally, I think ceiling wise, he has probably the biggest ceiling out of any of the quarterbacks, maybe out of any of the players in this draft. Um, but I think you draft him and you're drafting him because you think you can build him into the quarterback where we think we can be at the ceiling. So, anyways, Josh, Anthony Richardson, what's your thoughts on him?
If I was the Panthers, I'm taking him 1. If
Okay.
I'm the Panthers, I'm taking him 1 because
Okay.
his floor is a lot higher than people think it is.
Sure.
There's a lot on his film that's really,
Yep.
really good. There's a play that a bunch of people point out. It's against Tennessee. It's like a 4th and 3. He's calling the protections. He
Yep.
calls the protection. He lines up the running back, the offensive line. Protection's great. It's perfect. And he also sees the coverage. He like peeks a little bit at like to the left, and he's like, "All right, I got this matchup."
Yeah.
Strange because like Florida like barely won any one-on-one matchups with their receivers.
Oh, yeah,
Regardless,
you're telling me.
it's a 4th and 3, but he knows like he sees, hey, I can throw a go on this one. I don't just have to get to the sticks. We can get a big play. It's perfect. Block is perfect because he set it up.
Yep.
Perfect throw. That's a play. It's like, whoa, okay. He's calling this, and this is his first year starting. All right, this is something. And there's more. Like people talk about his accuracies, his different, and all that is, it's his footwork. His, you know, who else his footwork was kind of messy coming out? Patrick Mahomes. Now listen to me, people. I'm not calling him Mahomes. Not even close. Okay, Mahomes is different. Like Mahomes was like super crazy in college, and then put it all together and is a supernova in the NFL. But Richardson's stuff is pretty easily coachable and fixable.
Yep.
It's like a lot of it's just his footwork with these accuracies, and a lot of it is just he has a lack of reps. So I got these numbers here. So in 19 games played, like he played a few more games, but I think like he didn't throw. So I'm just doing like 19 games this last season, the season before that. Yep. 19 games, 391 passing attempts. This last season in the NFL, Kenny Pickett, 13 games started, or 12 games started, 13 games played. It was like 12 and a half. Like he came in the second half of the game. Kenny Pickett threw 389 passes. That's only a 2-pass difference. And Pickett had less games. So it's just, I think Richardson just simply needs more reps. So a place that if the Panthers wanted to be patient, I think they could start him day one and then take the lumps. I don't think they're going to be patient, which is why like I think they're going to go with Stroud because they want to win right away. And who doesn't want to win right away? But I think if you're willing to like, all right, we can take Richardson. He has all these crazy physical tools, like physically best quarterback ever tested. I think Dante Culpepper is like really close, but like they didn't really get all the numbers. But anyways, and like this floor is not as low as people say, and of course the ceiling is through the roof. I think you take Richardson and you play him week 1, or if not, then you can take him and sit him, but make sure he's really learning. Make sure you give him. Well, it's kind of hard to give reps like during the season, but like make sure that like your quarterback coach is like, hey man, or have someone talking to him like, fix your footwork, here's timing, just go through all these reps, mental reps if anything. Unlike the starting quarterback's getting reps, have him really paying attention to what the starting quarterback is doing. And this dude could be easily the best quarterback in this class, and of who knows how long, because again, just physically he's insane. Like 15 years ago, he's a number 1 overall pick as a defensive end.
Yeah, 6'4", 245.
Exactly. Runs 4. And the crazy thing is he ran like a 4.4 something.
Yep.
If you look at like, I believe the 10-yard mark of his 40, he takes a step sideways.
Yeah.
So he gets out of line. If he runs straight, he runs a 4. He could run a 4.4 flat, a 4.39 something.
Yeah.
This isn't, and of course throwing it crazy, but if I'm the Panthers, I'm taking him 1 because I believe in the floor. I believe the floor is high enough where it's worth taking him. Let him get the reps.
Sure.
And then he'll hit the ceiling or get somewhere up there. And if anything, just physically, he's going to be crazy.
Yeah.
Just let him run too. Just let him run. Let him get reps. Let him see things. Let him do stuff.
Let him do stuff. I 1,000% agree. And you obviously mentioned the letting him run. He had 103 rushes for 654 yards and 9 scores, and that was in 12 games last year. So, I mean, it not all, 300 some yards away from 1,000 rushing yards. That was only in 12 games. Um, so that's interesting because I think that's a very important thing to mention. I think a lot of people are kind of the consensus of he has a really low floor, really high ceiling. So I'm glad to hear that you think, as well as his high ceiling, also has a really high floor as well too. Um, and Andy Dalton, I believe, is the current quarterback in Carolina. Um, Good guy to learn from. So if they do want to throw Andy in for the first month of the season and let Richardson, develop a little bit, that's something that can happen. But we'll have to see. But so then if you're thinking not what Josh Milling would do and what these NFL GMs would do, it's probably Stroud, Young, and then do we think probably Indianapolis tries to trade up to 3 to get Arizona's spot, and then maybe that's where they get Richardson, maybe?
Yeah, maybe. And also, I think for Arizona's case, there's like the whole like, do they trade back to collect more picks because their team is so bad,
Yeah.
or are they so bad? Just like let's just get a really good player, man. Like let's
Yeah.
just get. So who knows? Like if you're the Colts, I think you get Richardson. Get Richardson.
Yeah.
Like if some team tries to trade up ahead of you, go up there, man. You better
Yeah.
work fast. But yeah,
Give them the house.
um,
Yeah.
exactly. And like that would be a pretty good place because like the Colts offensive line isn't like the greatest, but it's good. Like the Colts are a solid team. So I think that'd be a
Yeah.
good place for him to go.
Got decent guys to go to and throw to, and we'll see Shane Steichen, new head coach there as well too. So we'll see how that goes. I'm obviously very intrigued to see how Richardson's career pans out. Obviously, being a Gators guy, being at my team, I was able to watch him a lot and know what he can do. So um, we'll have to see. But anyways, we will move on to the next quarterback here on the list. And it's probably going to be Will Levis from Kentucky. Uh, Absolutely massive arm, cannon of an arm, another big guy, 6'4", 229 senior, really tough dude, insanely tough. He's not going to come out of ball games very much. Um, but there is a little bit of the interception bug. I think with Anthony Richardson, you could say, well, he didn't have guys to throw to. With Levis, you can probably say that too, but there was a lot of errors that Levis made where he did not need to. He did not need to throw into a lot of situations that he did, and I think that maybe kind of showed to some of his um, turnover issues that he had at some points. But what is your thoughts on Will Levis?
Will Levis is who people thought Anthony Richardson was going to be at the beginning of this draft process. He
Mhm.
is super raw. He needs to sit and learn, or go to a really good team who like last year if he had gone to the draft last year, which I think he would have, and he would have been drafted by the Steelers instead of Pickett, I think that would have been fine because that's a good wide receiver core. Offensive line's kind of bad, but you could work around that. If you have a really good receiving core, look at the Bengals. Um, yeah, I think it's weird because his first year starting for Kentucky, he wasn't as hurt as he was this last season. He was pretty good, and he had an offensive coordinator who became the Rams offensive coordinator, who's back at Kentucky now. So that's like a McVay. He got like the McVay stuff. This last season, he kind of had like a guy who like was Shanahan stuff. I might have flipped those two around, but like he's played in the McVay Shanahan e style offense that is the NFL. So knowing how to play quarterback, he's got it. Like at least up here,
Yep.
physically, he's got it.
Yep.
But it just doesn't go together.
Yeah.
Everything is all over the place. I want to like the guy,
Yep.
like physically, and he seems tough as nails. He was playing through so many injuries this last season, and
Yeah.
like he just kept playing. I think he opted out of the bowl game, but like, hey, it's the bowl game. The season's over, whatever.
Yes,
Like,
it was.
yeah,
Yeah.
whatever. And like he was really hurt. Like people don't realize how hurt he was.
Yeah.
Um, but I just it's just so inconsistent. Like he is again, he's what people thought Richardson was at the beginning. Where, oh man, this guy's the project. No, Richardson's not the project. Levis is the project. And he really has to just sit and learn somewhere for a year, 2 years. Like Jordan Love. I really was high on Jordan Love just because the tools were insane. But yeah, like I'll admit, like seeing him even in just the preseason games, like, oh man, this guy needs to sit and learn. Then last year when he came in, and I know it's just like a few spot things here and there, he looked a lot better. I think Levis, and I know like it's hard, because first round picks and everything, but if you are patient enough and willing to let him sit for a year, maybe even 2 years, you're gonna get a good quarterback. But the thing is with him, his ceiling is not where I think people think it is, because he does have a bunch of physical tools, but I don't know what it is, but I just don't ever see a ceiling where he's not like people are like, oh, the next Josh Allen. No, I don't see that at all. But I think he could still be a good quarterback in the league if you let him sit. So
yeah. Yep. The mental part, he's smart, obviously, to be smart to play quarterback, but he also has a physical part. But I don't think a lot of times those things are working in sync with each other. I think he relies too much sometimes on the physical aspect of it to bail him out of a lot of situations. But we'll have to see. And I agree with this. The website, NFL Draft, theringer.com, has his comp of Ryan Tannehill. I agree with. I think he has maybe a little more zip to his throw than Tannehill does. But we'll have to see. Maybe Tennessee goes with a Will Levis. I think 11. I think is where Tennessee's picking. That'll be interesting to see. But anyways, Kentucky. There we go. So we're gonna go to now a third straight SEC quarterback here. Tennessee Volunteers, Hendon Hooker. Now, this one is interesting. If he did not tear his ACL, are we talking about Hendon Hooker potentially being like more in the top quarterback range of this draft, do you think?
No. It would be him. It would be a lot closer with him and Levis for sure.
Sure.
Because like physically in this draft, it goes Richardson. For people not paying attention, my hand is off the screen to the top, and then on the screen, but second, it's Hooker. Hooker's a really good runner. Hooker's got a really great arm. Hooker's big and he's built. Dude can run between the tackles. Dude's got good speed. Dude makes some crazy throws. But man, when he started for Virginia Tech, like 3 years, 2 years, 3 years, maybe it was 4 years or something like that. But like he's just like I don't know, and I know like the Virginia Tech like offensive coaching staff was like not that good, but I thought him as like, oh, he's a below average college quarterback. Then he went to Tennessee, and then he played in this really, really built for offense or college offense, where the wide receivers are schemed open. Everything's so spread out. It's basically spread out. It's like, look, do I throw a bubble? Do I throw a go? Do I throw a deep post? Do I run? Do I hand off to the running back? It's so easy. Granted, did he do good in that offense? Great. But also, he didn't do that good until he was 25 years old. I have a list here of quarterbacks who are also 25 years old. Daniel Jones.
Oh.
Lamar Jackson.
Okay.
Oh no. My list got cut off. Anyways, here's a list of
right there. Those are they've been in the league a few years.
Yeah.
So.
Here's a list of quarterbacks who he's older than. Kenny Pickett.
Okay.
Jalen Hurts.
All right.
Jordan Love. Okay. Justin Herbert. Tua Tagovailoa. He's older than those guys. And it only took until he was a grown man to be better. It's like, is that good? Yeah. But he's also doing this against 19-year-olds.
Yeah.
It's
good
like
point.
I at some point, dude, I hope physically he's had it. I hope mentally at some point you get it. And I'm not saying that he couldn't figure it out. He probably could, but this offense historically, quarterbacks, wide receivers, even running backs, no player has really come out of this offense going all the way back to Baylor with Art Briles. No, it's just so like you think the air raid is simple, like the Mike Leach air raid. Rest in peace, Mike Leach.
Yep. Absolutely.
No, this offense is way simpler, man. This is This is at least to my eye. Like I've heard the Mike Leach offense is literally 7 passing plays, but it's kind of but even then it's just like variations on the play. So like there's technically a lot more plays.
Right.
This is just so simple, man. And
Yep.
I don't know. It's like last year. I was so high on Malik Willis just because of the physical tools.
Yeah.
But I was also like, that offense is so simple. And he went in the 3rd round, which is, probably I think I would have taken Malik Willis in the 1st round, but I was just like, sure, because physically he's the best. Hendon Hooker, physically, awesome. I'd say second to Richardson. But that offense is so simple, man. Like, I don't know how it does not translate at all to the NFL. But physically he does. And so I think if he hadn't been hurt, he probably is the 4th quarterback ahead of Levis. But even then, like, he's a guy just like Levis. He's got to sit and learn. And hopefully he comes back. Like, ACL injuries, a lot, like modern medicine, amazing. But you never know. He might have lost a step or two that just never comes back. So hopefully he comes back great. Hopefully he learns. Hopefully he like develops into a really good quarterback. I hope that for all these players, but I just don't know if it's there because again, this offense is so simple, painfully simple.
So do we think Hendon Hooker's probably a 2nd, 3rd? Probably. I don't think he drops any lower than 3rd, I'd say.
I think just because of how NFL contracts work, and if you get a 1st round pick, teams get a 5th year option that they can exercise.
Okay. So maybe a late
and because
first.
yeah, probably just the team's like, hey, we might as well just trade back into the 1st round because it might just be at that point it's like we're moving up 10 slots and we're just like swapping 3rd and 4th round picks. That might be where he goes. And if anything, and then he should be at least a 2nd round pick just because physically it's there. But again, he's just so old. Like he's older. Again, he's older than Jordan Love. So it whacks me out, man. I don't know, man.
Yep. Absolutely. We'll have to see how that goes. So we'll move on to a different position now. We'll go on to the running backs of the draft. I think there's a pretty consensus number 1 running back, and that is going to be Bijan Robinson from Texas. Now, obviously, especially in recent years, there has been a big push of not worth drafting a running back early. You'll have 4 or 5 years out of them, and then you're probably on to the next one. And in some situations, you look at that, and that's pretty accurate. But a lot of people are saying Bijan Robinson definitely is not just the best running back in the class. He may be just one of the best players in the draft class, regardless of position. I've seen him absolutely flying up a lot of boards, getting drafted mid, if not top 10 1st round in a lot of mock drafts I've been seeing. So Bijan Robinson, this guy obviously very fast. He's got good lateral quickness, break tackles, but he can also catch the ball really well too, which is very important, especially in today's NFL, where it seems like running backs are used a lot more in the passing game than probably in years past. So Bijan Robinson, what's your thoughts on him?
People have to realize that Bijan. Well, I think technically his name is pronounced Bijan. So I'm just gonna say Robinson. Robinson is just an offensive weapon. He runs routes like a receiver. He catches he'll go up and get balls. He's not like the greatest in the air, but he'll do it. And of course, like as a running back, he's insane. There's a lot of times his freshman year he was just hurdling dudes.
Yep.
Just easily with ease. Like you should tone him down a little bit because it's dangerous, man. Like he had a few times where he got flipped and landed on his back and it looked bad, but he just popped right up. But yeah, just when I look at him, it's this guy is a top 3 player in this draft just because the impact he can make. And like I said, with the NFL like 1st round thing, you get that extra year, and running back's only good for like 4 or 5 years anyway. So like their bodies just start to go downhill. You might as well, and I know that's a little cold hearted, but like it just take them.
Sure though.
Take them while they're good.
Yeah.
And take him while he's good. This is a guy who can impact the offense in so many ways if you use him right. Just it's not carries. Do not frame this by, oh, how many carries does a guy get? Like 2 years ago, I think the guy who averaged the most carries was Jonathan Taylor. That makes sense. He only averaged like 20 carries a game.
Yeah.
That's not a lot.
No.
Just get Robinson touches.
Yeah.
I don't care how you get him touches. Like, I'm pretty sure he returned some kicks. Let him do that too. Just get him the ball in space. Not even just get him the ball. I don't care how.
Yeah.
And he will make your offense go. And I think that is so valuable just in a league where tight ends are lining up at wide receivers are lining up in the backfield, running backs have been lining up at a wide receiver. If you're the Saints, you have your quarterback Taysom Hill lining up wherever. He's not really a quarterback, but whatever. Position versatility, and this is one of the best athletes at the running back position. And I'm just saying, just offensive skill position we've seen in a while. So, like, I've seen him like mocked 10 to the Eagles.
I have seen
Perfect. My dream is that he falls all the way to the Chargers somehow, and like just because the Chargers offense is like really good but just lacks electricity, he's the most electric player in the draft on the offensive side.
And especially too, Austin Eckler not been happy lately. So if they do end up trading Austin Eckler, well, there you go. There's your Austin Eckler, if not a better Austin Eckler. Honestly, we'll have to see. It's unfortunate. So you bring up a couple really good, solid points. The first one I want to mention is before I get into that is if the teams that were at like 1 and 2 didn't really need a quarterback, I think Bijan Robinson maybe does go top 5 of the draft, and that still may happen. Probably not. But talent wise, I 1,000% agree. And you mentioned the running backs usually go downhill in about 4 or 5 years. They do, and I'm 1,000% with you. If in 5 years this guy can add this much more to your offense, and that could be the difference between you making the playoffs and winning a Super Bowl, in that 4 years, absolutely you take it. Then you go from there. If he's still balling, still doing well, keep him. If not, well, then you got that 5th year, then you can cut ties with him, whatever. Obviously, we hope that does not happen. We hope wherever he goes, he has a very long career, very successful career, and would love to have him do really well on that. He's a very, very great player. He's the Joker. He's the Joker in the card deck. He can just do so many different things and provide so much value to any type of offense. So I'll be very interested to see, what does come of it, and hopefully he goes somewhere where they utilize him, utilize him well, for sure. So another running back here, Alabama Crimson Tide. It seems like they crank out an Alabama running back every year. Jamar Gibbs from Alabama, 5'9", 199. So a pretty small backfield in Alabama this last year down in Tuscaloosa. But what do you think Jamar Gibbs brings to the table? Where does he fall in the rankings for you?
Gibbs is so much fun to watch because he is so fast. He ran like a 4.36, and I'm pretty sure he runs like play wise. He looks even faster. Even back to his time at Georgia Tech, he was just breaking plays all over the place. He's got good kick return skills too, and he should be used there. And when he was at Alabama this last season, just because he's a really good receiving back too. Like there was sometimes it's like, man, Alabama, we don't have anyone. Bryce Young, just find him. Just find Gibbs. Just throw it to Gibbs. Gibbs a go. And go watch the Arkansas game where Young goes out with an injury, and Gibbs just breaks the game open with like multiple big runs just because he has that speed. And Arkansas isn't the greatest team, but like he's still just running away from dudes. Gibbs has game-changing speed, and you can't teach speed. And he's also, again, like I said, really good pass catcher. This is a guy who, like, when it comes to like fantasy football, he might be like a PPR. People are gonna love him just because like, oh, he'll catch like 5 passes a game for like 40 yards. He runs for another 40 yards. He'll have like a touchdown to a game. He's not super physical, of course, because he is small. He is slight, but this is a guy who perfect second round guy who whenever he gets on the field, teams or fans are gonna be like, why isn't he the starter? It's like he's not big enough to be the starter, but is fine for everything else. So this is a guy who I really like like guys who I loved watching, just with the ball in their hands. This is one of my top players in this
Sure.
draft. This in college, even again, all the way back to Georgia Tech, man. He's so much fun to watch.
Now, obviously, you mentioned, and I agree with you, probably a day 2 pick, probably an early second round is kind of what I would suspect he probably goes in the draft. So I don't know if this next thing would be applicable to him just because that is still pretty high in the draft. I mean, high second round, you're right there for being a first round pick. But I think this guy potentially could be one of the top dark horse, really, really, really solid players in this draft. Um, Now, again, take what you will with that. Usually, when you use a dark horse player, talk about someone in the 4th round, 5th round, 6th round, and that still is probably the case. But I think again, if Bijan Robinson is not Bijan Robinson, then we're talking about this dude probably being a late 1st round pick. I think is a very possible thing. So I'll be very intrigued to see where he goes, and I think any team that gets him is getting a very solid player. Now, obviously, not very big, only coming in at about 5'9", I believe. So not too big at running back there. But again, running back, no one's asking you to be 6'4" and truck through people, unless you're, Derrick Henry, to pretty much the anomaly to the running back position. So I'll be very intrigued to see who decides to get him. Very explosive player who can slip through the cracks, and again, very good pass catcher as well too. So anytime the guy gets the ball in his hands, he's going to do pretty solid things with it. So now we have Texas A&M repping up here. And Josh, I know I asked you for the pronunciation of his name before. I forgot it again. So I'm going to let you take the lead on this one so I don't butcher the name.
All right, yep. This dude, oh my god, Devon A. Chain has legitimate Olympic speed because he was on the track team, and his personal best was a whoops, his personal best was a 20.2 200 meter. For reference, the average for the Olympics is 20.24. So like he could legitimate, and the thing is with the 200 meter, that's a really good indication of long speed too, because he's got the short speed. He ran like a 4.3240, so he's got the burst. But once he gets out into the open field, he's not getting caught.
Mm-hmm.
He has several kick returns where, especially like the kick returns came in like big moments too. It was like, man, like in the third quarter, they were playing Alabama. It was a tight game. I think Alabama had just tied it up or something. Maybe Alabama had just taken the lead, something like that. They kicked it off to him, and dude just looked like I'm going to the house, and he did. He just outran people. This last season, they got upset by Appalachian State. It wasn't his fault. He couldn't do anything about the terrible defense, but he had a kick return where again, like Appalachian State had like killed clock. I think they like eaten up 6 minutes of game time, scored a touchdown, something. He took the kickoff right back, just ran right by everybody. He's got this crazy speed, but even though he's a smaller dude, he runs between the tackles. Like he had like against LSU, I think he had like 30 something carries, and he was like barreling. Well, he wasn't really barreling over dudes, but he was trying. Like he'll do it. He's willing. Um, you don't want him to do that. But again, like you can't teach speed, and the fact that he's willing to run between tackles and he's decent enough in it, like he's not a guy who's just gonna come and be like a gadget guy. You can put him in for a series or two, and one of those series or two, he might be a quick series because he might just take one play to the house. So
Absolute
he's
home
so
run potential.
exactly
Sure.
home run potential in the SEC, should do that in the NFL too. And if anything, and I know returns have been kind of iffy, this guy could be a legitimate player where teams go, all right, we are not kickoffs, just no go. We're not trying anything. We're kicking this to the back of the end zone. So this guy is such an impact, fun player just because of his speed.
Maybe like a Darren Sproles type situation. Absolutely electric on the return game for sure. I mean, 4.3240. I mean, that is insane. That's wild. But again, not a guy that's huge. I don't think that's a massive thing with a running back. You don't need someone that's huge. But I'll be intrigued to see where he goes. Where do you think? Is there a certain team in the NFL that you can think like he would fit perfect in?
I mean, the fun one, just because of what they do with like below average, well, I say below average, but like the style of running backs that they get um in these blocking schemes, the 49ers or the Dolphins, because they like dudes with speed. Like if you look at
Yep.
all their running backs, it's dudes with speed. And this guy has it in bunches, man. You just get him out there, get him a toss, give him a lane, he'll be gone. I like personally for me, I'd like to see him go to the Dolphins just because like the 49ers have enough and they're in the division as my Seahawks, so I don't need to see him. Yeah, put him on the Dolphins, man. That would be so much fun. Um, just
Yeah.
run around, speed by guys. That would be really fun. But like a team like that, 49ers Dolphins, like where you just they already churn out a bunch of good running backs, and then you get a guy like this that could be special.
Yep. I would not be opposed to that for sure. Obviously, we already have the electric backfield of Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson, and those guys can fly. You add a guy like him to the mix too. I'll be very intrigued to see how that would work. Mike McDaniel loves speed, loves his speed. So, and he's very creative in the offensive system. So, I'm sure he will definitely find ways to get this kid utilized. So, I'll be very intrigued to see what happens there. So moving to UCLA, we talk about the shorter running backs of the class. This guy, a little bit bigger, and he probably is going to punch you in the mouth a few times. For UCLA, Zach Charbonnet, again, hard nosed dude. Can run. He can run a little bit. He's not the speed demon of the class by any means, but he can run a little bit. Dude is strong, and he's gonna truck through you. So what's your thoughts on him?
He was a guy even going back to when he was at Michigan. Charbonnet was really, really like I was like, oh man, all right, this guy's pretty solid. And
Yep.
then like he kind of tailed off a little bit, then transferred to UCLA, and then behind with Chip Kelly, who just likes running the ball. Like Chip Kelly, like 3 tight ends, let's go, we're gonna run.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's Charbonnet is fun, and like the thing is, again, like the instant speed's not there, but like once he gets past dudes, his strides, he doesn't get caught, so that's pretty good there. And big guy, but he can also catch the ball really well. He's a pretty good catcher. The thing is that he's not like physically, he's not gonna wow you. He's not
Right.
like a physical freak. So this is why he's a day two, second round, maybe even early third round if he slips. But I'm pretty sure he should be a second rounder type pick. But yeah, he's really, really just solid. He's a guy who will come in and you will not be upset whenever he gets the ball. He will do something positive every time he gets the ball.
Yeah.
And that's really, really good for a lot of running backs. And
Yeah.
there could be some games, where he explodes. He's not going to explode. He's not the instant offense. He's not the instant play that A-Chain is. He's not going to tear the roof off by doing something ridiculously physical like Robinson. But
Yeah.
Charbonnet is he is like, if you wanted to plug in like a guy who's going to put up 900 yards rushing, catch 200 yards receiving, it's this guy. And that's fine by me.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. Um, yeah. You'll definitely you hit the nail on the head. You'll take that every single day of the week. A guy that you can't just sleep on in the scouting report. I don't think he'll be a number one. Oh yeah, definitely key on this guy, but it's kind of going to be kind of look out for this dude. He'll have some plays in the game. Watch him, and he's probably going to do pretty well with them. So the last two running backs I want to mention. First one is another Texas backfield. They produce those Texas running backs pretty well this year, I suppose. Roshan Johnson, a 6 foot, 219-pound senior from the Texas Longhorns. This season, 554 yards and 5 touchdowns. Now, obviously, when you have John Robinson ahead of you, you're not going to have out of the world stats. But this guy, pretty productive player and a reliable guy, it sounds like.
This guy, his freshman year, he was a quarterback. And Texas went, hey, we don't have any more running backs. You can run. You want to play some running backs? Like, sure. And I saw him pop off against LSU. And he runs a little, even like after playing 4 years, he runs a little too upright, but he'll just run over people. So like, it doesn't really matter. His center of gravity, what center of gravity? He doesn't need it. Really good special teams guy too. Unfortunately, that LSU game, they played Joe Burrow and Joe Burrow carved them up. But he's the guy who stood out for me on the Texas side. And he's a guy who will have a solid 8-year career in the NFL just because he'll do whatever you ask of him. He'll do it at least well enough to pass. And like special teams wise, that's where he could come in. Decent kick returner. But again, because he's physical, that's a little bit of an element that's not always with kick returners. Where like he might run over a dude and like break for another 5 yards, and that 5 yards is gonna be really good.
Massive.
And then like kickoff coverage, he's gonna be the guy running down there who just pops the returner and gets the crowd hyped, and that's really really good coming out of a guy who was a career backup, but backup to an insane running back. But and then if he needs to start, Roshan Johnson will just come in and he'll do a good enough job, and you won't be upset that he's in there. So he is the epitome of like he's not like C's get degrees type of guy, but he gets B's on his report cards, but it's fine. Like, and he could potentially sometimes like, oh, he has an A, and then the A kind of goes away like after a few tests and stuff. But it's not for him lack of trying. Like those are gonna be the most hard fought, well earned B pluses you will ever see. That's what Roshan Johnson is.
Yep, and the parents are going to be very happy with that B plus because they know he worked really hard with it. All right, and then the last running back I want to briefly touch on here from Tulane, Tyjae Spears, electric player. It sounds like 5'10", 201-pound redshirt junior from Tulane. 14 games here. He had decent stats at 1,581 yards, 19 touchdowns, also caught 22 passes as well too with that. Again, probably not a guy that's going to go day one at all by any means, but a player that could potentially be a diamond in the rough type running back in the draft. What's your thoughts on him?
Spears, he has injury concerns. I don't remember if he's torn the same ACL twice or if he's torn both ACLs, but he's had 2 ACL injuries, which is one of the reasons he's been a redshirt. And he doesn't have he's not like super like speedy. He actually runs like a 5 or 4.5, which is like average, but he can catch pretty well. And the thing is, his burst is crazy. He has a play against UCF in their what was it, the conference championship game. He catches a little short pass, and he like jukes at a guy, jukes at another guy, jumps over a teammate who fell on the ground, runs for like a 60-yard touchdown. He's got just the quickness and the agility is pretty special. And so this is a guy who will come in. He is purely just third down back, catch the ball out of the backfield, or I don't know, just get a carry or two. But he's gonna be a guy he'll stick around just because when he has the ball in his hands, he has a chance to break stuff. Again, it's not like crazy speed, but like he'll juke out a few guys and he'll have a few ankle breakers that will be on Sports Center. That's what Spears is. And again, injury concerns. Hopefully they don't come back. But yeah, I think he's one of the most agile players in this draft. At the running back position, and he's fun to watch, man. Like, put him in a phone booth. He's that kind of guy who he's not going to get touched. He's really fun.
Yep, absolutely. So we'll be intrigued to see where all of these running backs go, but we're going to shift over to another position, the wide receiver position. I mean, you got some dogs in this draft, that's for sure. You have some absolute studs coming out of here. So I'll dive into the first one here. I think we all assume he's probably the number 1 receiver coming off, and Jackson Smith and Jigba, Ohio State. What's your thoughts on him? Obviously a guy that pretty athletic, 6'1", 196, so not a huge guy, but he gets up there and makes plays. That's for dang sure. Do you have him as your number 1 wide receiver? And what's your thoughts on him?
Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
He did sit out this last season with like a hamstring injury and like soft tissue injuries. You never know. And like it was kind of one of those things where like maybe he was just shutting it down because he knew he'd be a first round pick. Who cares? Like Jamar Chase sat out an entire season and he's fine. So I don't care. He is just I fell into this trap a few years ago where I had Jerry Jeudy ahead of CeeDee Lamb because I'm like, CeeDee Lamb physically he's great, but Jerry Jeudy is such a good route runner. The thing is with Jeudy, like smooth route runner, just didn't know how to catch the ball and still doesn't know how to catch the ball. Jackson Smith and Jigba, has kind of a few times he had his freshman year he had concentration drops, but that year when he played with Chris Olave, who got drafted first round, and Garrett Wilson, who got drafted I think they went 10 and 11. Smith and Jigba was the leading receiver by far on that team. And then this last season, even the few snaps he played, dude was snapping ankles. He's got crazy just route running ability where he can just snap, and he's got a great feel for getting open. He's not gonna burn by people, but the problem is that it's kind of like with Spears, but Smith and Jigba is more special where you can't touch him once he gets the ball. He's just gonna juke this way, that way, take another run 5 yards, juke out another guy, and suddenly it's oh, he had 20 yards after the catch, but he juked out 3 players on the way because he's just so good at that. And so I think people a slot only receiver that for a long time that used to be a negative. This is I think it's just because playing him out of the slot with that much space is gonna be crazy awesome. That's using his potential. But he can line up outside if he needs to, and because I don't think teams try to press him. Sometimes he loses it physically, but other times they can't touch him because he just jukes by them. So, and it's not wasted movement either. It's it's all efficient. If you counted up the amount of movements he did on a route, it's low compared to Kadarius Toney a few years ago coming out.
Sure.
Who again, an ankle breaker guy, but Toney was more it's more flash, and someone's man, you don't need that extra juke here and there. Smith and Jigba was cut, stutter, go, catch, stutter, guy jukes by him, steps out of bounds because he doesn't
very
need to take
calculated.
a hit. Exactly. Yeah. And he's so smooth. So I think he's my wide receiver 1 by far.
Yeah, insane footwork. I think for me that's the big thing that stands out to him. He just very precise and like I said, very intentional with his moves. He isn't a Kadarius Toney as far as Tony, I'm gonna juke someone just because I can. He's gonna juke someone because that's what he needs to do in that situation. Not to say he can't. He absolutely probably could break many ankles if he wanted to. But he's going to do it when it really matters the most with that. So I'll be intrigued to see what happens with him. I think any team that he goes to, that's an automatic massive upgrade to that offense wherever he goes. We'll have to see. Maybe the Green Bay Packers, wouldn't that be something? Get Smith and Jigba. Oh, Aaron Rodgers, here's your wide receiver help. Too bad you're gonna be on the Jets now. But that'd be funny. But again, insane talent. Cannot stress that enough. I'll be very intrigued to see where he goes for that. Zay Flowers is the next dude I want to talk about. A Boston College man. Not a big guy. 5'9", 182 again. The concern thing, but I think you see that and you look at Devonta Smith with the Philadelphia Eagles, that was also a big concern. Now, he just wasn't big at all. I mean, he did not have any really mass to his body. Zay Flowers, 182, has a little bit more for a wide receiver, but not much. Very solid season, 12 touchdowns, 78 catches for 1,077 yards. Really solid player. Former 3-star prospect. They mentioned a very, very explosive guy, and again, another guy with really solid footwork. If you're not going to be built big, you have to know what you're doing out there IQ wise, and he certainly is. But just the athletic ability as well too. Very, very talented.
Yeah, and of course, all these small guys, there's a lot of small receivers in this draft, and they're all going to get the Devonta Smith comparison. Problem is, there's only been one Devonta Smith. So when you hear the comparison, I understand it, but Smith is above and beyond all these guys. That being said, really like Flowers, especially because when you say those stats, it's oh, that sounds solid. He was getting the guys throwing to him are going to be insurance salesmen. They're not good, and the offense just wasn't good. But I did like how they used him. They used him outside. They used him inside. They used him all over. They motioned him around and stuff. And because he can do it all, he's really, really good. He's got really short arms, and sometimes it does show. he will time it perfectly. He'll juke out a guy. He'll go up in tight coverage. He'll be right there. Everything looks good. And he'll reach up for the ball and he just can't get it just because his arms are shorter.
Mhm.
But otherwise, like, he'll do it. He'll do whatever you need him to do. And again, he just plays bigger than he looks. And he got rocked up too. Like he's small, but he's built. And I think it's a frame where like he can carry it too. It's not gonna hinder him athletically or anything, or like it's not gonna make him like a tighter body, more susceptible to like soft tissue injuries. I hope not. I believe he can carry this muscle. So this is a guy I really love, and also again, use him in the return game. Please, he can be really special there. And again, this is a guy like he's never gonna be a number one just because he will get eaten alive by the NFL corners like enough times where it's like, okay, we can't have his number one. But really good number two, he could be that. And if anything, just a number three, again, slot, but a slot who can line up wherever. And I really, really like Flowers.
Yep.
But
You can
again,
make a career off of being a really, really solid number two for sure.
exactly. But again, like a lot of these guys, the size, man, the size, just a lot of these physical, like they don't stand out. There's not the Jamar Chase. There's not the
DK
uh,
Metcalfs.
DK Metcalf. There's not AJ Browns. There's not any one of those guys in this draft,
Yeah.
really. But that being said, these guys can fit in really well to any puzzle, if as long as you know what you're doing.
Yep. Yeah. You got to have the right puzzle. That is a massive part of it. And we see that a lot of times coaches don't know what to do with them. And so we see careers unfortunately cut incredibly short because of that. So hopefully this guy gets put in a system to where he'll be utilized well with that. Again, like you mentioned, he's not anyone that's gonna um, he's not gonna bust through you or anything. But again, very intentional with his footwork, sure hands. He's gonna catch the ball, you throw it to him, and he's the guy that when your number one's getting locked up, or maybe they have safety help over the top, this is probably the guy you're looking at, and you want your number two to be that dude. So um, we'll be interested to see what happens with him in this draft. USC Jordan Addison coming out as the next fella I would like to chat about. 11 games, 875 yards, 8 touchdowns, 59 catches for USC this year. They say his player comp is a comp of Darnell Mooney. What is your thoughts on the player comp, and what's your thoughts on Addison?
Yeah, I like it just because like Addison is so small, like skinny. He's 5'11", and I was surprised. I was a little surprised because seeing him from Pitt, I thought he was a little bit bigger. But yeah, he like weighed in 173 at the combine, and then as a pro day he was 170. So like it's just like yeah, this is his max weight probably. That being said, this guy made Kenny Pickett a first round pick. I will believe that till the day I die. He's the reason Kenny Pickett was a first round pick because he's just that good. And I actually think like when he went to USC, they didn't use him as well as he should have. Like at Pitt, they lined him up wherever. Like he's tiny, but who cares? Inside, outside. He's such a twitchy player. It was crazy. Like it's like, man, this guy's open. How's he so open? Then you see like the wide end. It's like, oh, he like snapped off a guy at the 10 yards and left the defender in the dust just because he's that good. But then at USC, they just used him in the slot, which is a little weird. Like I felt like he could have been used outside. So like it kind of knocked him a little bit. But like go back and watch him at Pitt. He lined up everywhere. And he plays, he just catches everything. He'll go up and get balls. He had a play at Pitt where Pickett's rolling out and Addison beats the guy. Addison is by the guy 5 yards. But because Pickett isn't that good, and I still believe he's not really that good. He like keeps running, then like underthrows the ball terribly. So Addison has to like go back. Moss the defender is still able to break away from the defender and sprint for like a 65-yard touchdown to like ice the game. And he's so good. And again, like there's been problems like injury wise, like just because he's skinny, he's like a few nicks here and there. But I think he's the guy where again, NFL teams are really good. Like if you have skills, we'll get you open. We'll set you up in a place where you can get open, and he will get open. And I don't think he can ever line up outside. He will get just press coverage. He will evaporate into thin air. He'll just get demolished.
Yeah.
But line up at the slot, and the defender's terrified, and he'll juke one way and then he'll be gone. And also, again, I think not as a kick returner because he doesn't have the breakaway speed, but as a punt returner where short area quickness is more a factor, I think he could be he could come in and be a top 5 punt returner immediately if a team lets him. So that's the kind of quickness and the kind of hands too, because to be a punt returner, you have to have really good hands. That's the kind of hands and quickness that Addison has. And personally, I would draft him like a lot higher than where he's getting projected, just because I love him so much, and I think that he can just be such an impact player. But again, like I understand because the dude, like I am heavier than Jordan Addison. That's not saying much because like I'm just a lump on a log, but
no, you're not.
But Jordan Addison, man, like this dude's gonna be really, really good, really, really good.
Yeah, you obviously mentioned the success that he had at Pittsburgh. Let me rattle off some numbers for the listeners here. For that, he was undoubtedly Kenny Pickett's favorite target. In his sophomore season, he won the Biletnikoff Award, which, for those of you that do not know, that's the nation's top receiver, where he had 100 catches for 1,593 yards and 17 touchdowns. Now, those are outstanding numbers, regardless of what level of football you're playing. I think the number that stands out the most to me is the 100 catches. You do not see triple numbers in catches for receivers often. Now that's not because they're not good or anything. I guess in college more I'm saying. I mean, there's other good guys around you. It's just there are in college oftentimes a lot of different people that they get involved in the offense on many different plays. But he was undoubtedly Kenny Pickett's guy. And I didn't really think about it, but now that you bring it up, I probably would agree. Kenny Pickett probably is not where he is now if Jordan Addison never existed. But we're glad he did because now we get to talk about him now. So
exactly.
That's cool. So we'll move on from him here and move on to Texas Christian University dog, Quentin Johnson, 6'3", 208 pounds. Excuse me, Johnston, not Johnson, Johnston. Obviously, coming off of the loss in the national championship game where the Horned Frogs that was a tough.
I did not finish watching that game. I did not finish watching that game.
I would assume you're probably not in the minority with that. There were many people that probably did not. Nonetheless, though, we don't need to talk about that. This guy is a great player, really explosive guy. And you mentioned there isn't really the physical specimens of this draft. He's probably the closest you're going to get as far as wide receiver goes as physical specimen, coming in at 6'3", 208, which isn't massive by any means, but you talk about the lack of bigness in wide receivers in this draft. That probably is towards the top for that. So, pretty decent size. He can run well, obviously catch well. And the athleticism is really off the charts for sure. This guy is a fantastic player. In 3 years with the Horned Frogs, had 115 catches for 2,190 yards and 14 touchdowns in 32 games. 22 his best season, 60 catches this last one for 1,069 yards and 6 touchdowns. So what's your thoughts on Johnston?
Ceiling wise, he could be the best wide receiver. He should be the best wide receiver in this draft. If everyone hits the ceiling, he's the best. Because he is, again, he's not the biggest guy, but he's big enough. And the speed, he already moves like a short guy. Like a lot of times, actually, like TCU, you go watch it, he's used as like almost like routes that used to like a gadget player get used on. Like he'd get the jet sweeps, he'd get like short, like the touchdown against Michigan in the playoff game. It's like a short little crossing route where he takes, and then he just like he cuts back, and then just keeps running around the end, and then he's gone. Just because he's got crazy speed, but it's just he's a big dude, and he's got big arms, and there are plays that say, "Oh man, that's a great catch." He reached up and caught that thing over like 2 guys, and then he'll like run across and like he'll run 10 yards, cut inside, he's wide open, and the ball will bounce off his face mask. It's like, what are you
Yeah.
doing? And then other times he'll alligator arm it, and he won't reach his
Oh,
arms out, and he just won't go catch the ball. It's like, dude, go catch the ball. You're a big dude, and like sometimes he just doesn't play big, and there's enough reps of him not playing big where it scares me. Where it's like, of course you could get coached into it, but like, man, they didn't coach him there. They didn't tell him to be big. He didn't naturally like do this. Like, I don't know how it was in high school, but I'm assuming like unless he had a crazy growth spurt from high school to college, like I'm assuming he was like one of the bigger players, and he
I would
just never
assume.
learned to play big. That's a little frightening to me, and that could like really dampen down his ceiling. Where it's like, yeah, like he'll have a game or two in the NFL. Like if we're talking fantasy wise, he'll have a game that's like, oh man, he scored 20 fantasy points. That's awesome. I'm gonna pick him up, and then he'll go 6 weeks and he'll have like 5 points. It's like, what happens? Like he just doesn't go catch the ball.
Yeah.
So I don't know, like it's just something about it, and just it weirds me out. I want to like him. I really like the ceiling is there. When he hits the ceiling and he flashes, it's awesome. But he
Yeah.
doesn't do it enough, and that's weird. That's so weird to me.
Yeah. Yeah, the catching is definitely an inconsistent part. Another thing that people are saying too is the route running as well too, isn't incredibly consistent as well with that. So hopefully he gets to a team that tells him to play his size. Because if the ceiling is what we think the ceiling is with him, he could very well be a very impactful player in the NFL. Hopefully that's the case. But like we mentioned many times before, we will continue mentioning, you need to go to the right system. If you don't go to the right system, none of it matters at all, which is unfortunate, but that's just nature of the game. The reason why coaches get fired. That's because they can't figure out. So the next dude I want to talk about, Tennessee, they have a couple pretty solid studs here. The first one I'm going to mention is Jalen Hyatt. Dude, very fast, 4.40, 6 foot 176, junior from the Volunteers. In 12 games, 67 catches, 1,267 yards, and 15 touchdowns. He won the Blitnikoff Award this year with those statistics. And he also uh, had a 6 catch, 207-yard, 5 touchdown performance against Alabama. I think that is undoubtedly the cherry on top for his career. Very solid career, but you do that, and especially you do it against who you're doing it against in Alabama, you are going to fly up some draft boards for sure. So Jalen Hyatt, what is your thoughts on him?
This is another guy where he weighs 176 pounds. And like the whole thing about like coming out of when he was in high school and stuff, and like now, he has to like eat 5 meals a day, like to
Yeah.
keep that weight. If not, like he'd be like 160, just like naturally. And like already he's 6 foot. He does not like it's not like his 40 wasn't like super crazy. I think it was like 4.4, but just like his long speed is where he kills teams. Then again, that being said though, physically, if ever a team gets press on him, he just doesn't break it because he's just too skinny. He doesn't have natural feel. And again, that Tennessee offense, a lot of the times he was stacked, so he'd be behind another receiver, so the other teams couldn't press him. And then he'd get enough of a runway where he'd like his long strides, so he'd be past people. Like the Alabama game, he just long strides gone, but just because they couldn't get their hands on him. And it's not his fault. Like that's the offense. It's great. And I think he needs a very specific system where it's like, okay, you are just a vertical guy. That's not bad. There's been a lot
Nope.
of players who have made a
Can make a
killing.
great career off of that.
Exactly. And I think like I think he could be a special deep threat too, not just like one of these like random guys who bounces around the league, like signs a 1 year contract just because like, oh, we need a deep threat. I think he could be really special just because his long speed is really really good, and he catches the ball really well. Like he will a lot of these vertical guys, like if you just think just vertical threats, it just goes, oh, they're throwing a go route and the quarterback throws it right into his basket. But like any other catch, they can't really make the tough catches. Hyatt will make the tough catches. Like
Sure.
he'll contort his body. Like if a ball is like sailing out of bounds, he'll go get it. Ball is like kind of dying, he'll go back and jump up and moss the receiver. But
Sure.
that's about it for him. That's the problem. And there's a lot of times he was getting mocked in the first round just because I think people thought he was going to run 4.3 or even high 4.2s. He just didn't. He runs a 4.4, and I think that's more appropriate because again, it's the long speed.
Yeah.
And so his ceiling is kind of capped as to what he can be. But like again, like a team like the Chargers where they need explosiveness. I think that's the one team in the first round where he would make sense. And otherwise, this is a really good second round pick. Because again, the game breaking ability that he has is special. It's limited, but the
Sure.
one thing that he does, it's special. And that's pretty good.
Yep. And you can do a lot with that. I think it's a lot of times a phrase that gets thrown around, and he may be a pretty decent example. Is he's a pretty NFL ready player. I think a lot of times when you use NFL ready, it's usually a couple things. Well, one, they're probably at the ceiling that they're probably going to be already at, and two, he's just a guy that you can rely on. He's probably not the best receiver in the draft by any means, but he definitely is a very NFL ready receiver. You can probably plug him into many a different systems, and given the right coaching, could be a very impactful player in the league. I love the comp that NFL Draft.TheRinger.com gives to him is if DK Metcalf had never seen a weight room.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Because the thing with Metcalf was when he came in, he didn't know how to run other routes. And he kind
yeah,
of couldn't because like he's like as stiff as a board. But hey, go routes crazy. But the thing is with him, like, and it's kind of funny too because DK's big, but like even on jump balls, he kind of stinks. But he'll catch the ball. But the thing is, DK has learned to run a few more variations of routes good enough. I don't think Hyatt can ever get there just because again he's too skinny. So beating press off the line, I don't think he'll ever be able to do that. But you know, if he somehow magically like can gain more weight, and not lose speed, you never know.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So we'll move on to North Carolina here. Josh Downs is the next person. Very undersized, 5'9", 171 as well too. But again, a guy that's got pretty decent footwork. Not very fast for being as not as big as he is. Now, yes, I say not very fast. 4.48 is still very fast. But in comparison to people that we see of similar statures and we see 4.48, usually that's not a number that's going to jump off and pop in anyone's eyes. I would get absolutely torched. Josh would get absolutely torched by him. But as far as the conversation we have to have with him, not extremely fast for his body type. But nonetheless, a guy that is still productive, had 94 catches this last year, 1,029 yards, and 11 touchdowns in the North Carolina offense. So, what's your thoughts on Josh Downs?
Josh Downs is a player when I actually looked up how big he was, I was shocked because I thought he was at least 5'10", 185 because he or even like 5'11 because he plays so much bigger than he does. There's a lot of times where they're throwing him jump balls and he's like being contested, but he'll go up and get the ball. He'll fight through contact. He'll get eat again, like my favorite phrase right now. He'll get eaten alive by contact, but
Yep.
he'll fight through it. He plays
He
a
plays
lot bigger.
bigger.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he'll do and it's not just like he's got the will. He does it. Like especially balls in the air and really really good catcher. And again like I've been saying with a bunch of these short guys, it's like you got to be good at getting open because if they get their hands on you, you're done. He's really good at that too. And then when he just wasn't able to, you can still throw it to him and he's physical enough or he's willing enough and he's got good enough hops where he'll go get the ball. So this is another guy where he's just got to be a slot player. That's it. That's all he can do. But hey, that's still a really, really good player to have in your slot, especially like 3rd down and 6. You need a first down, he will get it for you.
Mhm.
And he might have a little bit of enough wiggle where that 3rd down and 6 could turn to a 20-yard gain just because he's got enough wiggle. That's what really like Josh Downs. But absolutely do not touch him in the first round. Cannot. I don't even think top half of the second round. He has to be late, back half of the second round. But
Potential.
again, yeah, really good player though. As long as you don't like line him up outside to get press coverage by Jalen Ramsey or something.
Go Dolphins. Very, very strictly sounds like slot receiver. Then I think you pretty much are only throwing him, and that's not just because of him. Usually the smaller guys, unless you are like a Tyreek Hill, usually are not lining up on the outside. Typically, you're probably lining up on the inside a little bit as well too. The guys that aren't as physically gifted. Again, like the Adam Thielens of the world. Adam Thielen is a fantastic receiver, but Adam Thielen is not Justin Jefferson. He isn't. Um, that's like Jarvis Landry a lot of those years when he was with Miami. Undoubtedly our number one. Now, I say this, he was lining up on the outside on both sides, was lining up in the slot. But I think Jarvis Landry is a extremely solid slot receiver. Um, I would love to bring him back to the Dolphins, but this is not a Jarvis Landry draft talk here. Talk about that all day. But anyways, you can be a very, very valuable slot receiver. And so I'll be intrigued to see where he goes for that. So moving on to Oklahoma, Marvin Mims Jr. Here's the next guy I'd like to talk about. 13 games, he had 54 catches, 1,083 yards, and 6 touchdowns for the Sooners here. He holds the high school state record in Texas for both single season receiving yards at 2,629 and career receiving yards at 5,485. Really pretty solid, sure-handed receiver over there in Oklahoma. The few years he was there, ran a 4.38 40 out there. So again, pretty solid guy. The strength is not massive. He's not going to push you around a little bit. But again, a productive guy who can be a pretty solid player on a given team, depending on where he goes.
Yeah, those stats you mentioned, just people remember Texas football is insane. So for him to put up those numbers is crazy. He is he's kind of what people want Jalen Hyatt to be, because like he is a vertical guy, but like Mims Jr. also knows how to, but like he lined up multiple places and he ran multiple routes. Sometimes he'll have really like strange drops. It's like, dude, what are you doing? That's an unacceptable drop. But otherwise, it's like, yeah, like he's kind of what people want Hyatt to be. So if it was like purely take away like anything like you've heard from anybody and just line it up like who you'd want, and if you're comparing him and Hyatt, like they're neck and neck for me. So I'm a lot higher on Mims like than like a lot of draft boards are. Not a first round player though, because again he's way too small and he's just not physical enough. But like if you went ahead of Hyatt, like if Hyatt goes in the second round and Mims goes ahead of Hyatt, I would not be surprised at all.
Sure. Sounds like this is the draft for the slot receivers. It is kind of the theme that I'm catching up here on this. Now, I guess maybe I should have done more research. I didn't put two and two together until that just a second. Is he related to Denzel Mims at all? Is there any relation there? Do you know?
I feel like I should know this. I'm looking. I don't.
I haven't seen anything that jumped out about it, so I would assume no. But
I don't believe so. No, I don't think so.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I just thought about that. I'm like, interesting. We'll have to see. But now we talked about one Tennessee wide receiver. Would like to mention another one here, Cedric Tillman. This guy is kind of the bigger one of the bunch. 6'3", 213, 37 catches for 417 yards, 3 touchdowns. Very physical guy. Probably physical wise up there with the TCU dude as well too. Big target. So red zone threat, check. He's going to be an absolutely massive red zone threat, I think, in the league, and that may be his thing. Now, obviously, I reading here he had a little bit of an ankle injury for a lot of 2022, and so that kind of hurt him a little bit as far as his draft stock goes, because he never really had a chance to have a massive season. 2021, he had 64 catches for 1,081 yards and 12 touchdowns. So really didn't have too many opportunities this last year, again, with the ankle injury. That'll that'll hinder any players' predictability out there. But Cedric Tillman, what's your thoughts on him?
If you look at not this last season, the season before that when he was healthy,
Yeah.
and then look at his games playing. I'm gonna say big names. It's Georgia. When he played Georgia, when he's played Alabama, he has balled out against those teams, which is really, really good. Again, Tennessee offense, whatever. But he was the dude getting hit a lot, pressed up. He was the number one guy. So a lot of the focus was on him, and he did really, really well. This last season when he was hurt, also it was very admirable because he's tried to fight back through the injury. He tried to get back on the team. He really wanted to be out there and play with them. He could have easily shut it down. And I'm like, yeah, we get it. Like, you're hurt, dude. You're hurt. But he's like, nah, man, I'm trying to be out there. And like it did hamper him, but the fact that he was out there, like that says a lot about the kind of guy he is. Big dude again, like you said, not a burner, but he's definitely a guy where he's again one of the more physical big dudes of this draft. And if he gets healthy, he could surprise and be one of the better wide receivers coming out of this draft just because he is so big and sure-handed as the sun rises and sets. Cedric Tillman will catch the ball if you give him a catchable ball. He's so good. He's so solid at that. But again, like the thing is, he's not an elite athlete, so that's going to hold him back a bit. But he should definitely be one of the first names you hear called on day 2.
Who would be your best wide receiver comp for him, you think?
I mean, they got Cortland Sutton here, and I kind of like that, but I feel like Sutton's like a little bit more of a vertical guy. Sure. I mean, I'm not saying he is, but like I've heard a few people comp him to Dez Bryant. Dez Bryant, way more physical. That's the thing. Yeah. Dez Bryant's a lot more physical, but just like the way Dez plays the ball in the air, like the catch he had against Green Bay. No, I'm just kidding. Yes. It was probably a drop. Who knows? we're not gonna go there. But like that ability to go get the ball in the air, no matter like if the defender is ripping at his face mask, Tillman has that. And again, just the sure-handedness that Bryant had. I see the same thing in Tillman. So he's like a Dez Bryant light squared. But that's not a bad thing. So I like
works.
Tillman. Exactly.
Yep. Absolutely. Perfect. Well, we'll give you another chance at the end of the draft to dive into some more wide receivers if you want, but I would like to dive into another position group, and that is the tight end position. So talk about the big boys of the draft now, catching the ball. We're going to dive into that a little bit. So the first one that I would like to mention is Utah stud Dalton Kincaid, standing at 6'4", 246, had 70 catches this year for 890 yards and 8 touchdowns. Absolutely insane little nugget here, folks. A former basketball standout who was a 0-star prospect after playing a year of high school football. Started at San Diego, transferred to Utah, and then overall throughout the couple years, 107 catches, 1,414 yards, 16 touchdowns. Pretty solid guy. A guy that's out here that's going to do a little bit of everything. He can run a little bit too. He's pretty athletic for the most part as far as tight ends go in that realm. But what's your thoughts on Kincaid?
I really like the Ringer. We're using the Ringer just because like the Ringer's website, just because the way it's been organized, it's really nice.
Yep.
I really like the comparison.
Yeah,
the comparison is, I don't even want to say it, but I'm thinking it. So what name do you think that is?
See, I saw that and I had to think about it.
Say it. So you could say it. They said it too. They've said it too, but
would it be Aaron Hernandez?
No. This is an all-time great tight end. So that's why he didn't want to say it, because like those comparisons get you in trouble.
Shannon Sharp?
No, like playing right now. Like receiving tight end. Receiving tight end.
Travis Kelce.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. He is kind of the way he moves. It's Travis Kelce like. We're not saying it's Travis Kelce, okay? Okay. Because the thing is like Kelce he's a much better blocker. Kincaid doesn't really know how to block, but like just catching the ball, crazy. playing against USC in the regular season, and USC's defense, like, honestly, not really that good. But Kincaid had 16 catches on 16 targets, 234 yards. Strangely, only one touchdown, but hey, man, he just was eating up the yards.
Oh, yeah.
And the crazy thing is, like, he wasn't the starting tight end because they had a guy, Brant Keithy, who's pretty good in his own right. I think Keithy's like the better all-around tight end, so that's why he was the starter. But Kincaid, like, again, just the way he catches the ball, the way he runs routes, it's insane. Is he a good blocker? Not really, but like he's 246. He can learn. He can learn. And like
Yeah.
honestly, like who cares? Just line him up out wide. You don't need him to block. Just have him catch the ball. And so I really like this. Is like there's a lot of talk because of these wide receivers being smaller that these tight ends might go higher. And then there's the argument. Well, look at where Kelsey went, where George Kittle went, where Gronkowski went. These guys didn't go first round. Yeah, but if they did a redraft, those guys are going first round.
Oh,
That's the problem.
top 10 probably.
Exactly. Like a lot like with Kittle, it was like he played at Iowa. They don't really throw the ball a lot. Gronkowski, injury concerns. Kelsey, it was like character concerns. Other tight ends who've been drafted in the first round have honestly turned out really well. OJ Howard, okay, he unfortunately injuries kind of took his toll. Yep. David Njoku, it took him a few years, but because just physically he's crazy.
He's found his way a little bit.
Yeah, he's good. Darren Waller, that was just character concerns and stuff. But he's turned his life around, figured it out. Yep. Really, really good. TJ Hawkinson, still learning, but he flashed. He's flashing. Yep. Evan Ingram, teams finally figured out he does not block, but if you just line up at a receiver, he's pretty good at that. Just do what these guys do well. And these tight ends that we're going to talk about, I wouldn't be surprised if 2 or 3 get drafted in the first round. As long as they're used properly, it's going to be like, okay, it'll put the rest of the argument of don't draft tight ends in the first round a lot. It's like, no, get these guys because they're good. Yeah. Like back to Kincaid, just again, USC. If you only need to watch one game of him, watch it in the regular season because 16 catches, 234 yards, 6 on 16 targets, and the touchdown. That's all you need to know.
Yeah, that's a decent day at the office for sure.
Exactly.
I think it's important too. And a lot of times, obviously you mentioned at tight ends, you're doing a lot of different things out there. Not only are you trying to catch passes, but you're also blocking, you're chipping people, you're getting the running backs, or sorry, not the running backs. The defensive tackles are probably diving at your ankles to try and get through you. So you're getting beat up and you're getting a lot of reps out there. It is okay to have 2 different types of tight ends on there. Miami Dolphins. Now, this last year, not great. Maybe the years before that. Perfect example. Mike Gesicki, uber talented receiving tight end, can do a lot. Cannot block. But Durham Smythe can't really catch, but man, can he block. I think a lot of teams should be doing that. I think it's rare that you have the George Kittles of the world that can, accelerate massively at both of them. It's okay. Get a couple different guys in there. See what you can do. So I'm really loving the tight end university that they have going on every year. I think that's really cool that they do that, put that together for the guys. But
yeah, Gesicki, that's so because I watch Red Zone on Sundays, and then I go back and like rewatch full games of the ones I really want to watch. But like I swear, every other week, oh Gesicki, look at this highlight, one-handed catch down the seam. Oh look, Gesicki get with another one-handed catch. Gesicki blocking. We don't show that. We're just gonna show the catches. But that dude is so fun to watch catching the ball. Yeah,
he is
kind of like Kincaid, man. Like he can't block to save his life right now. He'll learn. He can learn, but he'll catch the ball. So draft him in the first round.
Fortunately, Gesicki is now a New England Patriot, so we cannot talk about him the same way anymore.
Yeah,
so, happens to the best of us. Anyways,
no.
So moving on to Notre Dame here, another big dude, 6'5", 249 unit, Michael Mayer from tight end. And I love the kind of description of him. Throwback wide tight end, great combination of bulk and athleticism, throws guys around as a blocker, and is a quarterback's best friend as a receiver. So initially, my thoughts are, as far as pure what the tight end position kind of encapsulates, this guy might be the best one out of he can do everything. Now, that doesn't mean he's the best tight end, but of the things that usually you ask tight ends to do, he may be probably one of the best ones out here for that in this draft. What do you think?
Yeah, across the board, he's A's, A minuses.
Yeah.
The thing that like might not put him ahead is just because like again like with Kincaid is such a special receiver and
Yeah.
like that puts him ahead of Mayer. Like, but Mayer is again just really solid and like people like I think people have underestimated him because like they're like, oh man, Kincaid's so good at this, and like all the other like tight ends, like there's a bunch of other tight ends, like their athleticism is crazy, but like they lined up Mayer all over the place and they used him as a wide receiver because like Notre Dame historically doesn't really have good wide receivers. Like the only good one that I remember is Golden Tate.
Mm.
And like they just used Mayer kind of because they had to, because he was like the only dude. And even with defenses knowing that, he produced. And again, like when he was run blocking or pass blocking, he just chucking dudes. It was awesome to watch. But yeah, like he's gonna be a guy who will come into the league and like the epitome of a security blanket for your quarterback. Not just catching the ball, also blocking. You just see him out there, it's like, all right, Mayer's out here. I'm good. Don't have to worry about him. He's gonna do his job. Oh, I got some pressure. Mayer's right there, wide open. Or Mayer's in a little bit tight coverage. Who cares? He'll box out his guy. He's again like the thing is again like that he isn't talked about. He's kind of slipped a little bit in people's minds. It just goes like he's not an insane athlete, but he does everything else really well. So, if I had to rank the tight ends, I would have him as my tight end one, just
Okay.
because again he does everything so well. Like again, I
Okay.
said A's, A minus, but I would again like I would love to see him fall like to the. I would like to see him fall like um, selfishly to like to the Bengals or
Oh.
the the Bills. Just like give the just
No. Mm-mm.
or
No.
another good one like people talk about is like the Cowboys because Dak Prescott just loves throwing to his tight
Sure.
ends. This
Yep.
is a really there's a lot of teams at the back half of this draft where tight ends are going to make sense, and Mayer on any of those teams would be a perfect fit. So I like him. I like him a lot.
Yep. Yep. I'll be intrigued to see kind of where he goes again. The best, obviously, you have as your number one tight end. So maybe we'll see if he jumps up some draft boards. Now, the next tight end I want to talk about, we haven't talked about some Georgia Bulldogs yet. So I figure it's about that time to do that. You look at the definition of absolute unit in the dictionary. This next man, specimen, is going to be the picture that pops up when you're talking about that. Darnell Washington standing at 6'7", 264 pounds, is an absolute tank out there. Now, he can catch the ball, but he can muscle people around and he will throw you to the ground. Josh, first question before you dive into his analysis. As far as blocking tight end goes, is he maybe the best blocking tight end in this draft?
He's the best blocker in this draft.
Oh, okay. And
He's the
offensive
best.
line,
He's
everything.
yeah. When I
Wow.
remember when he was coming out in high school, when he committed to Georgia, a bunch of people were saying, hey, this guy, I don't know if he'll work at a tight end, but he could easily bulk up another 10, 15 pounds, which isn't a lot. Like
Right.
10, 15 pounds, and he could be a number one overall pick as an offensive tackle. I'm like,
Wow.
okay, that's crazy. And then I saw him how he got used at Georgia because they have a tight end there, Brock Bowers, who if
Yep.
Brock Bowers was in this draft, Brock Bowers would be the number one tight end. But
Yes.
Washington was just the blocker, but I say just the blocker just because that's how they used it. And then
Right.
this last thing, they're like, okay, fine, we'll throw you the ball. And it's like, oh, he could catch the ball too. But yeah, just blocking wise. And it's crazy too, because as a taller guy, his center of gravity is higher, but he will get down and he'll bulldoze people. And again, he's just a crazy athlete and he loves blocking. Catching the ball, really good, of course. It's not like
Yep.
elite, but it's good enough. He's giant. Just throw him the ball anywhere, he'll get it.
Yep.
So this is a guy where, and it's not just I thought, oh, I thought he was a big lumbering guy, and then I saw him actually catch passes week 1 against Oregon, and he's like hurdling guys. I'm like, okay.
This is a dude.
Then he ran a 4.6 at the combine. I'm like, okay, and then he ran a 20-yard shuttle, which was the 100th percentile, which is best. He ran one of the best 20-yard shuttles for any person in the combine as long as they've been testing. And shuttle, that's agility people. That's having to like bend down and move and stuff. And he did really good. So just if you were to like, there's a reason in the Bible that the Israelites are scared. It's like, oh man, Goliath is on that side because he's just big. Okay. But the thing is, Goliath couldn't move. Darnell Washington can move. Okay. Darnell Washington would have had Goliath scared. So just the thing with him is that he's not the most fluid athlete. Just like the agility is there, but like just the movement's like because he's so tall. Like it's not there. But he should be a first round pick. He should honestly. I've seen people talking about going to the Packers. He should go that high, just because he's just a freak. And if he doesn't work at a tight end, throw another 10 pounds on him, and you've got a really good offensive tackle. That's a pretty good backup plan.
So do you think if he goes to a team, obviously the blocking's already there, don't need to worry about that. Not to say the catching is not either, but if you can get him in a system to where maybe he's getting 70 catches a year around there. I mean, does this guy have potential? Now, this is a pretty wild thing to throw out there, but do you think this guy has a ceiling potential to maybe be the best tight end in the league? If it comes down to it. Now, obviously, you got the Travis Kelce's, you got the George Kittles, Mark Andrews. I'm not suggesting that he is or will be better than those guys. But a few years down the road, if the catching catches up to where the blocking is, I think that's a conversation that could potentially be had if that is his ceiling.
Yeah. I don't think he can reach the most. I don't think he'll ever reach the pinnacle just because the route running, I don't think we'll ever get there.
Okay.
But like everything else, yeah, like he's an athlete. He's big and he does what you need a tight end to do. He does it very, very well. And I think he can become great in them. So yeah, like I don't see why not. Like physically, the ceiling is crazy. But again, just like the movementness, that's a word I just made up. But yeah,
I'll go with it.
Yeah, it's not like fluid. So it's not he's not gonna snap people off like Kelsey does, or even like Kittle or Waller can do. But he'll be right there. Like for the longest time, the tight ends, when you talk about them, it's like it's Gronkowski, it's Kittle, it's Gronkowski, it's Kittle, it's Kelsey, Waller sometimes. But then that's kind of been it. And then there's just a churn of like everyone under those top four. He could easily become a he could fill that fifth spot easily. And that's top 5 tight end in the league. That's not bad. That's not bad at all.
You'll take that any day of the week. Absolutely. Next guy I want to talk about, coming out of Iowa, Sam Laporta, tight end. Now, casual college football fan, if you saw anything that Iowa offense did this year, you're probably wondering, why is this guy even mentioned getting drafted? Well, because he was probably one of the only positive things from the Iowa offense this year. 58 catches, 657 yards, only a touchdown. But again, he's doing his thing out there. It ain't his fault that they can't get the ball to him a little bit more. So as far as tight end goes, a little bit, I mean, a 245 is right up there. Height-wise, 6'3", so a little bit shorter than you'd probably like your tight end to be. But again, really strong dude, can toss some people around. But I think he is more known for the pass catching. Pretty solid route runner, pretty solid hands, and can move decently well as well, too. What's your thoughts on Laporta?
Laporta is, because it's just strange, like the tight ends that come out of Iowa, like has been really, really good. It's Kittle, it's Hawkinson, it's Noah Fant. Still figuring it out, but like athletically, just sometimes when he gets the ball in his hands, it's crazy. And then Laporta doesn't block as well as other Iowa tight ends have in the past, but because he is on the smaller side, he is a lot quicker and faster than most of those Iowa tight ends. But he's big enough where he just bounces off dudes. He's just a really fun receiver. And he comes from a background, super athletic background. So I just want to read this. So this is from Dane Brugler. If you don't follow Dane Brugler for NFL stuff, for draft stuff, you should be. So, all right. His father played football. His mother played basketball and softball. His older sister played college volleyball. Another sister, who's older than him, played college basketball, where she set the school record for career rebounds and currently plays for in the Dutch Women's Basketball League. And his younger sister is a volleyball player. So yeah,
Okay,
that's just
so he's destined to being great.
yeah, it's just he's a really good athlete. Now, like, is it all there? I don't know because they just didn't throw the ball, so I just don't know. I think it's gonna be there though. I think he's gonna be a fun guy where like you don't really want him blocking, but he'll make enough catches. It's like okay, all right, it's a solid player, but not for a lack of his talent. I think his talent can make him really good. But again, I just think he needs a few more just reps, just because like they didn't do anything at Iowa. So it's Iowa's fault if he gets off to a slow start to his career.
Sure. Yeah, I will be very intrigued to see what happens with him again. With I mean, tight ends and with what his family has done in the family's career, that is solid. So, anyways, moving on to the last tight end we'll probably touch on here out of Oregon State, Luke Musgrave.
All right, real quick, hold on.
Sure.
Do not read any of his scouting report because I'm gonna ask you a few questions. A
Okay.
pop quiz.
I'm just gonna look at his measurements, standing at 6'6", 253 pounds. So go ahead. Yep, quiz me.
All right. So we talk about with players that we really want them to have multiple athletic background, right?
Yep.
So talking about Luke Musgrave, this is a guy who he grew up in Oregon, right? Or he grew up in Washington, Pacific Northwest area. So
Okay.
and then he
So
moved to
shout out
Oregon.
to you. Shout out
Yeah.
to you.
What sports did he play in high school besides football?
Okay, so it's 6'6", 253. Natural instinct would like to say basketball would be one.
No, he did not play basketball.
Not a basketball player. Okay, so
No,
then next one would be he was probably an absolute unit pitcher, probably throwing about 95.
no.
Okay. Maybe in soccer they stuck him in goal and say, "Do not give
Nope.
up a goal."
Nope. See, usually those are the other sports that players play. These ones are special. I'm gonna give you one more guess.
Okay, so those are kind of okay. So it's the top three. So I was maybe guessing something a little more obscure. I'm gonna say he was in high school a really solid tennis player.
No, but kind of along those lines of tennis, you have to be very agile. The thing is with Musgrave, he's very agile. His ankles are crazy because he was a champion alpine skier.
You could have given me 10,000 guesses and I would have never gotten that.
He was a yeah, and you think of skiers the way their bodies just like they're almost parallel to the ground. Yeah, that's the way he moves. He also did track. He threw and ran, so he's strong upper body, and he's also got speed. And he also played lacrosse. So you think of just lacrosse players are just crazy athletes too. So
Yep, they
yeah,
are.
that's why this guy is athletically coming into the season. People are like he's going to be tight end one. Unfortunately, injuries. But if he could stay healthy, oh my word, this guy is gonna be so much fun in the league.
So you're a huge fan of his then.
Yeah, it's just and just like man, it's crazy, man. The dude was a skier, man. That's just a fun fact to have. That's fun.
Yes, and like I said, you definitely stumped me with that one because I would have never guessed that. No chance. No chance.
But you watch him play, you'll see it. You'll see it the way he moves.
I'll see the skiing. Okay, okay. I'll be looking. That'll be something to look forward to. That'll be something to look forward to. So now that's kind of the main offensive position. We're going to move over and talk about some defensive line now here. Moving over to those dudes. So the first one and the one that is very interesting, Jalen Carter out of Georgia. Now, at this point, everyone knows kind of the current situation that he is dealing with. A lot of stuff that came out around the combine, pro day. We'll see where that goes. we don't need to touch on that. It's pretty been well documented at this point right now. But if that stuff does not happen with Jalen Carter, if his name is not in that circle, are we talking Jalen Carter is probably the lock at number one, even with the potential of um, Carolina keeping, or sorry, without Carolina trading up, Chicago has that pick. You think they keep it and go Jalen Carter?
1000%. 1000%. Last year's Georgia's, or not this last season, the season before that, that Georgia defense was historic. The front seven at least. The secondary was questionable, but historic front seven. That's all you need. People are like, man, Jordan Davis is crazy. He's getting Heisman votes. Nakobe Dean's an insane linebacker. Trayvon Walker, number one overall pick, and anyone in the know, draft guys who like pay attention, and like college football fans, like, hey, Jalen Carter's the best defender on this team, people. Okay,
Yeah.
and he is and was, because he's a bulldozer, but he's so quick. There were so many times I mentioned all the way back for CJ Stroud. Go watch this Georgia tape, because that's all you need to see for CJ Stroud. But you also watch him like, oh man, Jalen Carter's like in the backfield like every other play, because he's quick for his size. He's so quick, so that's why he is a true 3-down player. He'll impact the run game, and then when it comes to any passing downs, he's going to be in the backfield. And people always like, well, defensive ends, that's the more premier position for pass rushing. Like at this point, it's like people just get a pass rusher.
Yep.
And what's the quickest route to the quarterback? Right up the middle. So
Yep.
Jalen Carter, right up the middle. And if you needed to, there were sometimes they did line him up sometimes at defensive end just to like terrorize the poor tackle. And it was as expected. It was just pure destruction. But yeah. But the thing is, like, you mentioned the off-field stuff. The thing is, there's a lot of teams saying like they don't know with his decision making, so it is very scary. So do not be surprised if he does fall out of the top 10. But if all of that's settled and like he's all the off-field stuff like gets fixed, yeah, this is top 3 player in the draft type stuff. Not just this draft, a lot of drafts.
A lot of them.
A lot of drafts.
Yep. You definitely mentioned the top 10 thing. Interesting you brought that up. Obviously, his agent kind of came out and said that he's not talking to any team outside of the top 10. So I understand why. I mean, I would be a little shocked, I think, if he drops out of the top 10. I think a team takes a chance on him potentially in the top 10. And I say take a chance. I mean, it's not like, oh, the dude's a fringe first round or second rounder. No, the dude is a number one in the draft for sure. So any team that gets him is going to get a dog. Now, it's obviously the legal issues where it could potentially wreak some havoc there. But 6'3", 314, dude's an absolute unit. I mean, I hope he stays out of the AFC. I hope he goes to the NFC. That would be fantastic for me. If he is on the AFC, hopefully the Dolphins can find a way to trade into the first round and get him. That would be fantastic. But
hey, didn't you guys get Laramie Tunsil because of some crazy pre-draft stuff?
Yep, we got Laramie Tunsil because he on draft day got caught smoking a mask bong.
I'm not saying I would wish that on Carter, and I hope like the off-field stuff like it gets all figured
absolutely.
out. But what if he just suddenly just falls again? History repeats itself,
Well, this time the Dolphins don't have a first round pick because
Thanks,
we
Tom
tampered.
Brady. Thanks, Tom Brady.
Thanks, Tom Brady. Cool.
Even when he like gets out of the division, he still hurts the Dolphins.
Yeah,
fun times.
We love that. But anyways, I will be very interested to see where he goes, though. I think if this doesn't happen, he doesn't drop out of the top 3. Chicago might even keep their number 1 overall pick. I mean, that's a very likely situation that happens for sure. But we'll have to see. But they got DJ Moore. There's a solid dude. But anyways, Brian Brees is the next guy out of Clemson, standing at 6'6", 298. Obviously a tall dude. In 2022, he had 15 tackles, five and a half tackles for loss, 3.5 sacks here. Pretty versatile defensive tackle here, defensive lineman, pretty light on his feet. What's your thoughts on Brian Brees?
So, number one, I have heard 10 million ways to pronounce his name. I've heard how you said it. I've heard Brizzy. I've heard Brizzy, like Bruh. So they have it here as Brizzy, Bruh, then Zee. So I'm gonna go with that. Um,
Okay.
so freshman year, tore it up. Dude was crazy. Just everyone's like, oh, he's the next Clemson defensive lineman. Next year, he had injuries, and then this past season, injuries again, and he missed games because unfortunately his sister passed away at 15 from a rare form of cancer. Um, and even when he came back, like you just again like a thing that doesn't get talked about with this stuff, like these are young people, and that's a crazy thing. That's a crazy unfortunate thing to happen. So
Yeah.
even when he's on the field, maybe he's just sometimes like people like they go through the motions in slow motion. Other times people might go too hard and they like press too much and like you're going too you go too much and like that affects you there. Like you can't find a middle balance. So maybe that's what's affecting him too. But I don't know. Like he did look different this last season. That being said, freshman Brian Brzee was, if he was draft eligible, was a top 5 pick.
Mm.
So, because again, the way he can pass rush is so special, especially from that position. If he finds that freshman form again, people are going to be wondering why he didn't get drafted higher. But I understand injury concerns and this last
Yep.
season, with the stuff with his sister aside, it just didn't look right. So
Right.
I personally, I'd be fine taking him in the first round. But I also understand if he's not in the first round, just because you don't know. Like, where did freshman him go? Like, did the injury sap him? Was it just because of the stuff with his sister? Who knows? But again, freshman Brian Brzee was so crazy to watch. So
Potentially a late first, probably no further than an early second would be fair to
yeah,
say with him.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's kind of what I've been seeing as well too. But yeah, we'll have to see. Hopefully, obviously, that's a lot of things that can affect someone. Obviously, had an ACL was kind of the injury that kind of put him back a little bit. So the mental aspect, obviously, he's gone through more than most people should have to endure at so far a pretty young age as well. With that, only at 21. So hopefully, whatever team gets him, they get his mentals in the right place because it's a mass part of it. It's a mass part of it. So hopefully he's
Hmm.
able to work through that. Obviously, we don't know if that is the issue. We don't know that at all. But
Yeah.
got to mention it. Got to mention it. The next guy out of Pitt here, Kalijah Cansey, 6'1", 281 defensive lineman. In 2022, he had 30 tackles, 14 for loss, and 7 sacks. 6'1", 281. Again, not a huge dude, but can move pretty well. He can move pretty well. At 4.67 was the 40 that he clocked in for that. But what's your thoughts on him?
This guy is really strange because he is a little bit smaller for a defensive tackle, but he's big for a defensive end, and like sometimes you can be too big for a position. But things like against the run, he's like not that good. But pass rushing is great. So, but I think he's big enough where if you put him in as a defensive end on rundowns, like he'll be fine. And it's not that he doesn't try. It's just like he just doesn't have it physically. But it's kind of like the Michael Bennett thing, where Michael Bennett, for the Seahawks and then the Eagles, yeah, lined up, or not the Eagles, whatever, lined up on the edge, and then he would move inside, and then just his speed would just destroy guards and centers. So I think Cansey can be really good. I don't think he's like top 10, where like some people have started to put him just because he tested crazy, but he should be a first round pick, not top 10, but should be a comfortable first round pick. And just don't expect him to be a run game guy, but expect him to put up like the flashy numbers, the sack numbers, tackle for losses numbers, those kind of stuff.
Which you'll take that any day of the week.
Mm-hmm.
Any day of the week for sure. Um, Now this next guy, I 100% guarantee I will probably say his name wrong. If you know how to say it,
I want to hear you say it. I want to hear you
perfect. But
try.
I would like to try, Josh. Most people probably do not know, Josh. You are my kind of name expert. Anytime I want a name, you usually know how to tell it right. So I'm gonna try it here. You tell me how close I am if you know it.
All
So
right.
I'm just gonna go for it, and whatever happens, happens. Okay, so from Northwestern, interior defensive lineman, standing at 6'2", 282 pounds. Aditom Aditomiwa Adibawari. Adibo
That's not
Adibal.
bad. That's
Okay.
not bad. You had there were pieces there. So yeah. So I get it. So, okay. So it's Addy. This is one of the first guys who, I can't remember if it was Dane Brugler or Lance Zierlein. One of those two guys like tweeted out the pronunciation like very early in the draft process. So I had to nail this down, and I nailed it down. Addy Tomiwa Addy Bare. Um.
Okay.
Yeah. Crazy athlete. Crazy athlete. Um. Again, a little bit on the smaller side, so sometimes in the run game he kind of disappears, but like pass rushing, so good at that. And it's just I think he might be better actually as just a bigger defensive end that gets moved inside. But I would, because I've seen some people say like, oh man, I don't know, like if he's a first or second round pick, he should probably be a second round pick. I've heard chatter that he could be, heard chatter as in I've like heard the people who actually have sources say that
Yeah.
he could be a first round pick because teams would like to move him more as just a defensive end type. Don't have him inside because he just doesn't have the physicality for it. But as a defensive end, yeah, he'll be just fine there. But either way, as a pass rusher, Adi Tomiwo, Adi Bare will be really fun to watch as a pass rusher.
I believe also they mentioned 4'49", 40. So you
Mm-hmm.
mentioned the athleticism. Dude can move.
Mm-hmm.
Dude can move. We'll see what happens. And then the last defensive lineman I want to touch on here, coming out of Wisconsin, Keanu Benton. That was a lot easier of a name for sure. Standing at 6'4", 309 pounds. Dude's just a unit. He's going to clog up a lot of space. 35 tackles, 10 for loss, 4.5 sacks. Kind of split some of his time between the nose tackle and some technique spots as well too. With that, doesn't have massive range with his ability, but I think if you're able to just kind of plug him up in the middle and say, "Hey, clog up these run lanes," you can be very successful. So, what's your thoughts on Benton?
Yeah, this dude is just another Wisconsin trenches guy who's just strong. He is strong. He might not always get the penetration, but he's not going to move back. So in the run game, he's going to be awesome. You just stick him in there, you're fine. He's not going to lose ground. If anything, he's neutral. That's pretty good. And then he has enough of the athleticism and just like the relentlessness because he just doesn't stop. Where as a pass rusher, he'll be a plus pass rusher, which is really good. Again, if you get a defensive tackle who you can leave on the field for 3 downs and like not have to worry about him, that's really good. So this is another guy who could sneak into the back half of the first round. And if anything, again, another guy who should be an early day 2 guy because
Okay.
he can be on the field for 3 downs, and that is so valuable. So Benton really like him. I was higher on him, and then like Adibare jumped him just because Adibare is like a crazier athlete. Um, but I would not be mad at a team at all for taking him in the first round. So Benton's really fun.
Perfect. Cool. Well, this is kind of your spot in the podcast now, Mister Milling, where you kind of give us the other players to watch, maybe guys that aren't getting talked about as much. So, who are some of those guys for us?
All right. So defensive end out of Georgia Tech. Just give me a second here because I forgot his name, and I should know his name, but where'd he go? I have too many tabs and things open here, so this is a fun time. But the thing was with this Georgia Tech guy, he's a really good athlete, and that's what has surprised people. Keon White. Thank goodness I found his name. Keon White. He was a guy coming into this not a lot of people knew about, but I think he is so special athletically, where he could come in as a surprise first round pick, and he could be anywhere from like 15 on. Where it's like, whoa, where did this guy come from? But it's like, nah, he's just a really really fun athlete to watch. Cornerbacks, I mean, they're a bunch. Christian Gonzalez is really fun just because he comes again an athletic family. His sister she was in the Olympics, so again, really good athlete. Devin Witherspoon is smaller, but he plays like his hair's on fire. He's always hitting people. Okay. Starling Thomas is a cornerback out of UAB who's just so fast. He's so fast, and he's not gonna be. He might honestly be a day 3 pick, just because like he went to UAB and people are like, oh, whatever, UAB, but he could be a really good starter. Now, safeties, no, it's not Sidney Brown. I can't remember because there's Sidney Brown and Chase. No, Chase Brown's the running back, and Sidney Brown. They're brothers. They went to Illinois. They're both the same as that. They're just really physical dudes. They're both physical. Both of them were really fun to watch at both sides of the ball. So if you need physicality, get one of them. Get both of the brothers. It's really fun. And the guys I really want to hit on are wide receivers. Specifically, there's one. This is the last guy I'll talk about because we've been going for a bit. Understatement, but A.T. Perry out of Wake Forest. Now, when I watched him play, I thought he was shorter, not because he doesn't play big. I just the way he moves, I'm like, oh, okay, this guy is like 6 foot, 195, 190, because he moves. His moves are like so. This looks like a slot receiver, but when you talk to him, he's like, oh, he really worked in it because he actively was like, hey, I want to be able to move like a small guy. Because like when he was playing, like even in high school, people were like play like a big guy, but they would just lump him as a big guy. He has those skills, but he also is 6'4", 198. So he's a tall guy too. So the thing is, he will catch anything. You throw it at his ankles, he'll be able to catch. He doesn't just bend down to catch it. He'll bend down to catch it and keep running. There's a play against North Carolina. It's like late in the game. Unfortunately, it gets called back because of holding. But they go route is thrown to him up the right sideline, and he's running. He's looking over his inside shoulder, and then he has to like jerk his body around and dive and catch it. Like it's kind of like a back shoulder fade type, except it's like going to the ground. So like he has to jerk and like fall to the ground to catch it, and like plucks it off the ground like before it touches the ground. Beautiful play. Fortunately called back, but that's the one play that always sticks with me because not a lot of tall dudes make those plays. He's not like a super fast guy, which is like he's not going to be a first round pick, but he's a guy 2nd round, 3rd round, maybe even 4th round, just because again, like he wasn't a crazy tester. But this is a guy who will, fantasy wise, won't be crazy, but you will love him on your team because he will just always make the catches when you need it, and he might be like the guy who it's like, okay, it's 4th down, 4th and goal, playoffs on the line. Who do we go to? I'm not mad going to A.T. Perry. Because he will catch it wherever. You just throw it in his direction and he will somehow catch it. So that's my last guy, A.T. Perry out of Wake Forest. There's a bunch of other guys, but I could talk for 5 hours, on random dudes. So
we've gone 2.5 hours and it's flown by. So maybe we should try for another 2.5.
Oh man, if we had the time,
Yeah, at the time. Absolutely. Well, awesome, Josh. I appreciate you coming on the show, and it's always fun every year to talk a little about the NFL draft, dive into some guys' stories maybe that we didn't know much about. And once again, you always bring the heat.
Yeah, man. Appreciate coming on, man. Love talking the draft, man. So much fun.
Now, is that a Farley Dickinson sweatshirt, Mr. Milling?
Yes, it is. Let me move this out of the way.
Now, if I would like to remember, I do not believe you attended there. Is there any certain reason why you might be wearing that sweatshirt?
Well, just like how I first heard about UMBC when they defeated a number 1 seed, and then I bought their sweatshirt minutes before the game was over. So I've been a UMBC fan since day one. I bought this after the game, but I'm a fan. They went on to play another game. It's a tight game against whoever they played. March Madness was crazy. I don't remember all the games, but yeah, Fairleigh Dickinson. Shout out to them, man. It's a fun time. Go Knights.
So you're a true UMBC fan. You're a bandwagon Farley Dickinson fan, is what I'm
Well, I
understanding.
also have a T-shirt of Fairleigh Dickinson, so I think I should be considered
Did you buy
solidly
it
on the
during
bandwagon.
the game? Did you buy it during the game?
No, because no, that shirt came out the night because Home Field Apparel didn't have a licensing deal. But if you look at Home Field Apparel, because they work so fast, shout out to them. Literally, like the next day, they're like, "Hey, we got the deal signed. We're good to go. We can make logos with Fairleigh Dickinson stuff." And so I bought it then. I bought it as soon as I could. So
Okay, fine. We'll give you the true fan for that as well too.
let's go.
Day one.
Shout out to the Knights, baby. Let's go.
Perfect. Anyways, Josh, so would you like to give out some of your social medias or kind of shout out any certain things that you're working on right now? Go ahead.
Yeah. So one of the reasons I didn't do as much as a deep dive. If you look at the stuff in the past with Lucas and I've gone on a lot more players. It's because I'm writing a college football magazine with the Transfer Portal CFB. So the website is the Transfer Portal CFB.com. Yes, I don't know if that's right, which is really bad by me for not knowing my own website. But yeah, no, I was right. The Transfer Portal CFB.com.
Okay.
All one word. So I've been writing with them since 2021, writing college football stuff. We're doing draft stuff. This is our first spring preview magazine that we're putting out. It's going to be an online thing. You can get it for $9.99, which is a really good price, if I do say so myself. And also, like, graphic designers working on this, man, it looks so cool. And like we're working on we're going a little bit more specialized. It's not just like here's a depth chart of teams. It's like we're looking at the entire encapsulation of the team, like trying to figure out for this season. I'm writing 10 teams. I don't know if I'm actually allowed to say the teams or not, but
we'll have to watch and see.
Yeah, exactly. I actually don't know. Like, I'm writing about 10 teams, maybe a few more. We're doing really fun player interviews. I'm not sure if I can say the player interviews yet, but so I won't. But we have gotten it's not even like it's not like we're getting I'll just say like we didn't get like a Bryce Young yet.
Sure.
Yet. Maybe honestly we're trying, man. We're actually a little quick thing because we're at the end, just fun nugget for people.
Yep.
If you're trying to like contact the schools, a lot of them like some of these bigger schools have been like easier to contact than the smaller schools. I don't know why.
Oh.
Like just getting access. So like potentially trying to get access, but like bigger schools, people are busier. So like we haven't been able to get the access. Not for lack of trying, not for lack of access. So like that's a fun thing to know. But yeah, we're putting out this preview magazine. It's really good. But the thing is with these interviews, and like these player profiles, like they're really, really good. And I believe that these are really fun things to like learn about these players. And yeah, like the breakdowns we're putting out are special. Not just like, again, it's not just like here's the first, second, third string quarterback. This is all right. I'll like use an example of a team. Like this is the University of Florida. Like what is Billy Napier doing there? What did he do this last season? What is he going to be able to do this upcoming season? And like maybe for some teams like Florida, it's like what's the future term too? It's not just exactly. It's not just focusing on this upcoming season depth charts, man. We're trying to do more storytelling, more like broad picture stuff, which is what we do at the Transfer Portal. We do fun, crazy stuff, man. Like I've done some crazy articles. Like I wrote about like let's see, I had a really fun series where it's like, what college football events would have blown up if social media had been around. That's a fun series. You could go look it up. That's one of my best series I've ever put together. And then also the graphics there is really fun. So go look that up if you're still checking this out at 2 minutes and 27 seconds or whatever of the podcast.
Absolutely.
But yeah, so the Transfer Portal, I mentioned the website. From there you can find links to all of our social media. We got a podcast. We have YouTube videos, which are just YouTube exclusive. The podcast is also on YouTube. We have even go back and watch some player interviews. We interviewed one guy, like big name college football fans should know, Grayson McCall, the quarterback for Coastal Carolina. Mm-hmm. Another cult favorite, Bailey Zappi, is one of the first. I think maybe it was one of the first interviews. I think they interviewed him before I joined the website, so that's a good one. Yeah, follow them. Follow us on Twitter. I'm gonna say the Twitter because that's where we're most active. But
do it.
T Portal CFB. We're in conjunction. If you know the Twitter account, No Context College Football, we're connected. Same thing. So follow us there. Support us. buy the magazine. Let people know this is going to be a really, really special magazine that comes out. I believe it comes out July 4th, actually, I think.
Okay,
So like
Independence Day. Happy birthday,
exactly,
America. Here's a magazine.
exactly. So celebrate. You're drinking a cold one with some friends. You're on a lake or something. You're watching fireworks explode, and you can tell your friends, "Hey, man, I read in this magazine about X player because of this fun backstory. Something he's going to be a breakout player, something like that. Man, it's going to be a really awesome magazine." And then yeah, follow me on Twitter at Josh_Ray_A. I'm purely just sports, pretty much.
Yeah.
That's all that account. I have like another account that's like not for sports, but I'm barely on there because my life is sports. So fun
Yep.
times, fun
And I
times.
respect it. And you were one of my favorite follows on Twitter because the content that you put out, that all you guys do is always fantastic. And I'm always excited to see what's coming out next. So July 4th, potentially, folks, look out for that magazine. I know I will certainly be and towards the front of the line, hopefully, and being able to get that sounds like a lot of fun. But again, Josh, thank you so much. You always do a fantastic job coming on, and I really appreciate you taking the time to do it.
Yeah, man, Lucas, appreciate this, man. This is a make. I feel like this is going to be an annual thing, and we've kind of already made an annual thing, and
It
I can't
is.
wait for it every single year, man. Every single year.
Well, hopefully we'll see you before again next year, a year from now, for with some other stuff. But anyways, folks, yeah, certainly follow Josh. All of those socials, I'll drop that in the links below in the description below too to follow that. Follow myself at Lucas_Dorton. You can follow my co-host Nick Duckett on Twitter as well too, even though he is not here at Duckett, and you can follow our Twitter page at DND_podcast. So it's not Dungeons and Dragons. That is Dorton and Duckett debate. So certainly follow us on there as well too, folks. But anyways, as for Josh, as for myself, until next time, folks, thank you for listening. We are out.